Welcome to the February 6th, 2023 meeting of Richmond Selectboard. We will start with any public comment of regarding anything that is not on tonight's agenda. Kira, do you have your hand raised for this?
Yes, I do.
Okay, please go ahead.
Hi, Cara Labounty. I've provided the Richmond Select Board with information from the attorney for the Vermont Secretary of State's office regarding access to public records and the storing of public records and making public records available for access from the public. Richmond has not or is not currently doing that and has not. They have 10 days to provide information to the public when the public has requested it. And I've been asking for information for many, many months, and I finally have reached out to the Vermont Secretary of State's office. I am asking the Select Board to please take action and potentially remedy your situation that has been created and has been brought to your attention. Thank you.
Thank you, Kara. Do you want to have Kara, will you just remind the group of what it is that the information you're asking for?
I asked for information regarding the water and sewer department and the cost of the expansion project out into the gateway, and was told in numerous public meetings that not all the information was accessible or not all the information was kept. And then when we discussed it at a select board meeting, your finance director said that only needed to keep documents for 1 year was the comment that was made in public, which is not a true comment. That's misinformation. And that if the town of Richmond has destroyed records, that is an issue. And you need to get permission to destroy records through the Vermont Archive group if you are not going to keep public records available to the public. So you have an issue that you need to deal with.
Thank you, Kara. I did see the email you sent, and I checked the state website. Some things can be destroyed after an audit, like receipts, but I'm not sure exactly what we have and what you are looking for. So we'll work. We'll look into it. Thank you.
And my request is, if you're going to destroy things after an audit, since an audit is just a sampling of some of the information, it's not a review of every single receipt, that there's no reason in today's day and age that we can't have electronic copies that require no storage space in a basement or at upper level or anywhere, and it can be accessed directly on a computer. Thank you.
Thank you, Kara. Yes, Barb.
So I'm jumping to item 5, items for next or future agenda might be to follow up on this. And also, at least in state government, different parts of state government have their maintenance of records policies and their schedules of records. So I haven't looked at what our town policies are for maintenance of records. But generally, to Kara's point, my perception is in the public sector, things are, you keep them unless you have a reason or a policy that allows you not to keep them. So I think that's something that bears scrutiny into the long term, as well as the best we can do to produce the records that were requested. So there's both the remediation of the immediate issue to the degree we can, and then addressing future issues in terms of maintenance of records policy. And that staff are aware of that.
Thank you, Barb. Jay.
I would just like to agree. I think that we should be scanning everything, but there's not an overwhelmingly compelling reason not to scan. Maybe we don't need every receipt for 40 years, but as Bard and Kara both said, server space is not going to fill up. We could be saving that and then would be electronically searchable, et cetera, et cetera. There's just no good reason not to be keeping everything in a scanned archive.
Okay, thank you. Any additional public comment of items that are not on tonight's agenda? Okay, we'll move on.
June, hey, this is Katie Mather. Can I make a comment?
Yes, you may.
So per the scan everything, make it publicly searchable, as somebody who spent almost a year and a half getting our current website updated, I can say that scanning it and making it publicly searchable is easier said than done, because in order for things to be searchable, they have to be saved as basically like scannable PDFs. And that takes a fair amount of time. And so just keep that in mind as we say things like scan everything and make it searchable, because it has to be scanned and then stored in a particular location. So I'm not saying I'm for or against it. I'm just saying it is a job that requires time. And so we should keep that in mind.
Thank you, Katie.
June, this isn't for public records to be searchable from our website. This is strictly for the staff to be able to search it. There's a big difference, and thank you, Katie, for bringing that to everybody's attention. I didn't mean searchable from the website. I meant the staff doesn't have access.
Okay, thank
So,
you.
For what it's worth, this is Jen. Katie, what you said is correct. I have, through my work, been involved in the creation of publicly scannable records. It is work, but it's something that can be done if you're systematic about it. And so you would have to simply identify what does need to be scanned and kept, and not try to do literally everything, but it's doable. The alternative is sticking in a filing folder in the basement in a disused lavatory with a sign saying "Beware the leopard" on the door. I mean, that's a quote if you're recognizing the quote. But I think it's something we need to explore.
So this isn't an agenda item that we warned. So that's a good conversation. We'll put it on a future agenda because it is something we need to review. So thank you, everyone. Any other public comment? Okay, moving along. Any additions or deletions to tonight's agenda? All right, moving on to items for presentation. First, consideration of making an appointment to the Recreation Committee. So the seat on the committee that's reserved for a Bolton resident is currently vacant. The term for the seat runs until 2024. Bolton resident Kathy Costello has applied for appointment to this seat, and the Bolton Select Board has voted to recommend her for appointment. The application is in our information. So now we're just looking for a recommendation.
I move to appoint Kathy Costello to the Recreation Committee to fill the seat that is reserved for a Bolton resident with term expiring in 2024.
This is David. I'll second.
Thank you very much. Yes, Jeff.
I did have a question relative to this.
Yes.
So the Recreation Committee's charge is largely volunteer green, is that correct, or is it beyond that?
That's a good question. We have someone here on the Recreation Committee. Do you have a sense, Judge?
I can probably speak a little bit to that in terms of
Okay.
it's more
Thank
than
you.
volunteers green. It's kind of a nebulous one. Obviously there's stuff that goes on at Brown's Court, there's other stuff, kind of public spaces we use. It's not a traditional recreation committee, but it is, they do have a pretty good record of their mission and stuff on the website.
So I'm trying to understand the rationale of having people from other towns be on our committee.
So I can,
Yes, go ahead.
so I think right now, a lot of even though their charge might be beyond volunteer screen, I think most of their work in the last year or so has been focused a lot on volunteer screen. And when this was formed, I think it was about 2 years ago, there was discussion that it's not only Richmond residents that use volunteer screening, but from the surrounding communities of Bolton and Huntington, they also come to use volunteer screen. So the decision at that time from the select board was to include a resident of each one of those towns to provide some feedback. Also knowing that the recreation committee isn't going to make binding decisions, those decisions will have to kind of come back up to the select board anyway.
So I appreciate that and welcome the input from the other towns that use it. Do they contribute towards it in any fashion other than providing a representative on the committee? Because they do cost.
There's no financial transfer of funds in the budget from one town to Richmond.
Has there been any thought of doing that? If residents of other towns are using it, has there been any thought of, them potentially contributing to the upkeep of, we do have a recreation budget.
We do, and I think that because that's not what's on the agenda is putting whether or not to vote someone on this committee. If we want to review the how the committee operates, the operating procedures, we can do that, but it would need to be at another meeting.
And so it's just, I just wanted to bring it up. It seemed like a good time to, just ask the question.
The lens is showing light. I don't know why it's not projecting.
Game outline, wish I could turn it off and it back on maybe.
If you can hear us, we're working on the projector. So if maybe you just table that and decide if we want to
That's fine.
review
That's
like
fine.
the role of neighboring towns on the recreation committee.
There is gonna be we're gonna be looking at appointments to all committees in May. That might be a good chance to review the structure of some of the committees and determine how we want to work with them going forward too.
And they are all different. Okay, so we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Anybody on?
No hands up on Zoom.
Okay, all right, please state your name and your vote.
So Jeff,
Jay, I.
David, I.
Bard, aye.
And June, I. On to consideration of a request for Andrews Community Forest Committee to utilize $800 from the Andrews Community Forest Fund. We have the information in our packet. There is going to be a community meeting being held, and the current balance in that fund is $32,468.37. And they would like to do a mailing and.
So I think is there anybody from?
right here.
Andrews? Oh, there was. I knew there would be somebody.
Please introduce yourself.
Name's Jim Monan. I'm on the Andrews Committee.
Mhm.
And we are doing a public engagement meeting on March 29th with various professionals that we've been working with. So we want to buy some food, have some refreshments, and then we're going to print some rather large maps, like 3x4 maps of the trail layout and the changes to the recommended changes to the management plan and so forth. So we were asking to use no more than $800. I kind of try to itemize things out. It's a little rough. I don't know if we're going to do the maps in color or not. And I don't know if I'd ask you if you guys use specific people for printing maps.
We do them here.
We do them here.
Yeah.
We-
In some cases.
We can
right?
do some here, but we've also used like a Staples or other
Okay.
places to print. So we
Okay.
can work with you on that.
Okay.
On that. Depends on what Linda can print.
We're still kind of working that out, but probably we're thinking anywhere from 3 to 5 maps.
It would seem like you could do those.
Yeah, I just don't know whether I've never used that. It's
And
a
the
question-
size,
it's a
are you
question for
talking
Linda.
about big maps?
Yeah, like
Oh, so that,
36 by 48.
yeah, we can't do that here. Can you?
Well, Linda does have a big printer. I just don't know what the capabilities are.
Okay.
So I think it's a good point. We should look into that and see if we can print them in-house, then absolutely. If not, I think it won't be too much.
We're gonna,
mistake.
we might try to do a couple color overlays to show sensitive areas and trail layout and such. So I don't know capability. I don't have that. capability.
We can get you in touch with Linda and
Okay.
she can look at the files and see if she can do it or not.
Okay, questions?
This will be an important meeting.
Mhm.
So good maps are, and
Yeah.
if you can't get them here, having good maps would be good.
The one observation I make is sometimes the overlays work best on screen, but you got to decide where you are and how that works.
Well, we'll have that too. I think we're gonna take the maps that we present that people want to get a closer look up on.
Great. Kara,
Can I ask how much the maps aren't the full 800? Can I ask what the rest of it is? Are you doing a mailing out to people? Is that what
No.
you said? Or
I
just
said
for
that.
food? Okay. Is it just for food then? Because the ARPA committee got ice cream donated. I mean, $800 seems like a lot of money when it
Yeah.
could buy a bench, for 500.
Yeah, so we're thinking probably, we're estimating between $400 and $500 for map printing. And then I had about $200 for food, cheese, crackers, vegetables, dip, fruit, small plates, napkins, serving spoons, tongs, and so forth. I mean, I'm not gonna spend it if we don't need to, but I don't want to have to come back and ask for another $50.
And my last question is what is the outreach for? Is it just for trail trail changes, or is it to potentially put some restrictions on the land itself?
For a minute.
Mrs. Guthrie?
It's a revised management plan that we've been working on for 4 years.
I just wanted to share
Will
with
that
the
be-
public.
Yeah.
Will that be online? Will it be online?
Eventually. Yeah, eventually, yeah. Before the meeting will be online.
Thank
Yeah.
you, thank you.
But it's an engagement meeting.
Yes. Yeah, we want people to see the work we've been doing, the proposed trail layout and so forth, and there'll be the Arrowwood professionals will be there. We'll have somebody from VLT to answer questions.
So will this meeting be a presentation of what your final
So-
proposal is, or will it be a meeting to get?
I'm fine to have these conversations, but I'm asking for the food. But I don't want to go, I don't want this to become an Andrews.
No, I
Question, yeah,
understand.
okay.
It wouldn't be appropriate for that, but
Yeah.
I'm trying to
Yeah.
The last time that I went to an Andrews Forest Committee public meeting, I was very impressed with it. It was well attended. It had like 75 people
Yeah.
downstairs. So numbers count, how many people you're figuring and whatnot.
I mean, yeah, we said maybe 60 to 70. That's what I anticipated,
Yeah, I think that's probably good.
at least 50.
Looking for approval to purchase food
Yeah.
and maps for 60 to 70.
Yeah.
Can I make the motion?
Yes, you may, Jay.
I move to approve the request from the Andrews Community Forest Committee to use $800 from the Andrews Community Forest Fund for public engagement.
This is David, I'll second.
Thank you. Any further discussion? You have your hand raised on, are you all set, Jay?
Oh, my Zoom is set to recognize when I raise my hand.
Oh. All right.
There's a setting. If you raise your hand,
Oh.
it will eventually.
Uh-huh.
Okay, if there's no further discussion, please state your vote.
See, just like that.
Is that an aye?
Bard, aye.
David, aye.
Jay, aye.
June, I thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And get with Linda on that stuff.
Yeah, I can work with you too.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Yep.
Okay, moving along to consideration of approving a certificate of highway mileage. This is an annual approval of the highway mileage for the town of Richmond, and the state bases state aid for town highways on the mileage of roads in each municipality. The town mileage has been updated to remove the 0.3 miles of class 4 road that the town lost in the legal process related to Williams Hill Road. Are there any questions on this? Do you want to talk about this at all?
I think you covered it.
It's pretty straightforward.
Yeah, I mean, I can equal if you
The
want,
document.
if you want more information, I can show you the document and what we did. So this is the basic document that we use to report back to the state. The only change here is you'll see class 4 is going from 3.11 minus the 0.3 to 2.81. The state does ask for backup, so I attached the stipulated judgment order, which also has a map which details the 0.3 miles of class 4 road that is no longer a class 4 road. So I think pretty straightforward. It also, just so people know, that doesn't affect funding. Funding is really based on class 2 and 3 roads, not on class 4. So we should still be able to get the same funding because it's still the same mileage for those roads.
Yes,
That would also suggest that there was no financial conflict of interest in that issue of a class 4 road.
We don't get any state aid to
Right.
help
Right.
fund
Just one.
repairs or anything.
Yes.
Having raised the issue.
I move to approve the certificate of highway mileage for 2023.
This is David, I'll second.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Please state your name and your vote.
Jeff, I.
Jay, aye.
David, aye.
Bard, aye.
And June, I. Moving on to consideration of approving an application for the Rural Economic Development Initiative grant to hire a grant writing consultant. Do you want to talk about this?
I'll let Jeff talk about it.
Okay.
He's
Save your voice.
Well, more, you're better versed in this than I am.
So, the town center committee recognizes that, this, whatever we do to this building is gonna be an expensive project. It also has lots of different, beneficial attributes that might be attractive to a variety of grant funders. Work preservation, energy, community development, a whole bunch of different, potential grant sources, and there are a lot of new ones right now. After the Inflation Reduction Act, there's a whole bunch of new incentives, tax incentives, and the joint, I don't know, all those three big money bills that came out of Washington last year included lots of money. So the Vermont Housing and Conservation Board recognized that small communities have a difficult time doing the research and the grant writing themselves. So they set up a program to hire grant writers, consultants directly through them and offer them to towns that apply for it. So we have the opportunity to apply to this program. It's called the Rural Economic Development Initiative. It's a rather simple application form. I included that. I think that was included in the packet. We can get up to $7,500 worth of consulting time with no requirement for match. But what we have to do is we have to commit to actually saying we want to do that. So that's what we're asking the select board is approval to ask for this grant source.
Thank you, Jay.
I would just like to say I am always in favor of strategically and creatively using grants to avoid spending taxpayer money. So I'm all in favor of this.
If
Yes,
you're ready,
Bert.
I'd like to proceed with a motion to that the town of Richmond apply for a rural economic development initiative grant, to hire a grant writing consultant, and to name town manager Josh Arneson as the grant manager.
This is David, I'll second.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Okay, please state your name and your vote.
Jeff, I.
Jay, aye.
David, aye.
Bard, aye.
June 9.
We're out of sequence here.
You gotta be fast.
Throwing us all off. Okay, consideration of setting a hearing date to amend the traffic ordinance. And we have been talking about this for a while. Can I hand this one to you?
Sure thing.
Thank
We
you.
do have a couple of representatives here from the traffic committee, or sorry, parking advisory committee. So just sort of review the process, so where we're at. So the committee came to the board over the last couple of meetings to recommend some restrictions on Cochran Road and on Dugway Road. And they've now come back with draft language to change the ordinance to get this into the ordinance so that we can then start to enforce that. The process takes a few months by the time we set a hearing date, hold the hearing, then there's a 60-day waiting period. So essentially, if it's approved tonight to move forward to a hearing by May 11th, it would be in our ordinance and we can start doing, enforcing that. No parking area. There's also a request tonight to review the $25 parking fine and potentially change that when we change the ordinance. I understand that we might have to talk about the hour hours. Then we're in the language. Kevin is sounding like he's trying to jump in here. Let Kevin jump in, but just as a preface to this, Kevin contacted me. Kevin's line?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Kevin contacted me earlier this afternoon. There might be a few errors on the exact feet that we were using for intersections. So if we can clean that up tonight, then we can move forward with the hearing. I think that it will be fine. We get fairly close. If there's some small changes to that in the hearing, that can be acceptable. If it changes by like a half mile or a mile or goes to a whole different road, we can't really do that in the hearing. We would need to do that ahead of time. So I'll turn it over to Kevin and the rest of the committee for more details.
Yeah, and I think I was gonna defer. So I went out today with the wheel and rechecked some of the numbers and realized that one of them says 963 feet and it should have been 693 feet. And so if we have to kind of punt this until for 2 weeks, that's totally fine too. If there is a mechanism to make that correction tonight, or I don't know, Josh, I was going to kind of defer to you. I don't want to put anybody in an awkward spot. And I think I'd rather err on the side of caution, which was right, and to save 2 weeks.
Yeah, So if you have numbers that you're confident in this evening, I'd say that we could make that change, and when we warn the hearing, we can put those numbers into the ordinance, as long as the board is in approval of that tonight. If you want more time to verify the numbers and then come back just to make sure you're 100%, that could also work. And looking at, I was just starting to review the timeline. We actually have a situation in March where we've got 2 meetings back to back. I haven't looked at the exact warning time. We might be able to get this, if you come back next week, in 2 weeks, it might only bump it a week because of the anomaly where we're gonna meet 2 weeks in a row in March. I'd have to, so it might still be mid to late May, even on that time frame.
I say we bump it then. I'd like to check the numbers too. I had to kind of do it in a rush today, so I'd like to take my time and make sure they're right.
Fair.
Okay,
I do have a
yes.
question relative to that. In Front Porch Forum tonight, there was a question about how the parking ordinance applies to along Gillette Pond, West White Hook, which is a completely different situation where this is the time of year that Gillette Pond gets used. And there isn't any parking along West White Hill where Gillette Pond is. And so if we enforce the parking ordinance, if it applies to everywhere, being in the travel portion of the road, I just don't know how to deal with that.
I think this is going to be different because it's a specific location that's being,
I don't think so.
no,
It's the entire ordinance that we're.
but we're putting signage, is that right? And
So is your question about Gillette Pond specifically and what people are or not allowed to do?
Yeah.
So Gillette Pond area is like, I think any other road where there's no parking in the traveled portion of the roadway. And that's been asked to be enforced pretty strictly on Dugway Road and Cochran Road, even before the ordinance changed.
right,
And I understand that we've been writing more tickets over in the Gillette Pond area this winter. I think that's sort of as a result of the summer enforcement, which I understand is potentially a change from the way that has not been enforced in the past. And our chief is here if we need more information. So if your question is related to that, that's what I understand about where we're at now, where we've been. If you're asking, could we change that in the ordinance? Is that what you're asking, or you're more sort of status?
I mean, it's not a problem. So, on Dugway Road, it's a problem.
Right.
It's not, and that could be discretionary, enforcement. Potentially, it may not need to be written into a document, but I don't know.
I think it's worth asking Ben, because as I understand it, the no parking in the traveled portion of the road defaults to a state statute as opposed
Right.
to a town ordinance. So then what are the circumstances where we could overrule a state statute in a certain section, say no parking on the traveled portion of the road except here? That's sort of what you're pursuing, I think.
Enforcement, as we've seen, is discretionary. We haven't been able to enforce everywhere in town. It depends on where you are and how you enforce.
Ben, do you have something to share on this?
My thought, my opinion is that the law is, whether it be town ordinance or state law, you can't park in the road. There are plenty of people who park on Dugway Road that are just a little bit in the road, and it's not really that much of a problem. But the town has taken a hard line that parking in the roadway is not okay. And so if that's, I don't think it's fair to one group of people to aggressively ticket and ignore another group. The idea that it's not a problem to park on West White Hill Road on the roadway is not accurate. There's not enough room for two cars to get by each other with a third car parked on the road. So I don't think we should just be saying it's okay to do on West White, but not any place else in town. Because any other road that somebody parks on, we get complaints and are expected to either ticket or remove cars. So I don't see where, I don't understand why it would be okay on West White Hill.
Thank you. I do think it creates a slippery slope if you can use subjectivity in where you enforce the law. And I think that's how we get into situations where people may say, I'm being targeted. Or this person is getting away with it, but they're focused on me when I do it wrong. I think if we are following the law and we're actually putting an ordinance in place to kind of solidify this, I think we can't say, but don't enforce it here. Yes, Barb.
I just thought of this moments ago. Is it plausible to have parking violations with different financial values in different areas?
That's a good question.
We make it $10 at West White and 200 everywhere else.
I don't know. Yeah, yes.
So,
Chuck.
Chuck Gilroy, Parking Committee, two questions. First of all, we appreciate the ability to kind of tweak our Cochran Road proposal for the next meeting. Are we able to still continue forward with the Dugway Road proposal starting today? And with some resolve with those numbers?
I would suggest we just do it in one hearing.
We probably should do it all at once.
Because
Because we have to have
the
a-
entire ordinance in order to do this, right?
And then you'd have to have two
I
hearings.
think so, yeah, you'd have
That's
to
why
have
I'm
two hearings,
asking.
two advertising sections,
Yeah.
but just I think it really only delays it a week. I'd rather just do it.
Oh, fair enough.
Yeah.
Yes.
And John Rankin from the Parking Advisory Committee. I did hear.
Could you please come to the microphone?
Oh, yeah. Can you? Thank you.
Thanks, Aaron.
John Rankin from the Parking Advisory Committee. I did hear from the Richmond Land Trust that they're entertaining the thought of when the dam is completed, to have a small number of parking spaces. Parts of West White Hill have a clear line of sight. It's arguably in those places, there is very low safety hazard for people parking in the road. The town is spending, I believe, hundreds of thousands of dollars
Yes.
to fix that dam. Skating is a good thing. And so I think it would be reasonable if the police force, if there was no clear safety hazard, focus their attention on other areas where there was one. And there are, I think, maybe 3 spots on the wide open stretch down near Huntington where you can park, but that could easily fill up. Thank you.
Thank you. Jean Ann?
Hi, I just had a question. So if, we want people to be able to enjoy some of these natural resources like Gillette Pond. My kids skated up there, when they were little, and we always parked as far off of the road as you could get, and it was never an issue. My kids used triple buckets and they parked down the Dugway Road, and it was never as much of an issue as it is today. So my question really is, what is the town doing to help provide parking for these people who want to use these natural resources? They did a great job down at the bottom of West White Hill, where they went into Bombardier's Field and made a nice parking area, which clearly needs to be made even larger. But that's really opened up the use for the Winooski River down there, and people have really enjoyed that. So, my only question really is, I don't want to tell everybody you can't do these things, you can't participate. Where are they supposed to park? I mean, I can't imagine parking at the bottom of the Dugway Road and having to walk up to the gorge or triple buckets.
Thank you, Jean. And I think we're doing a lot with the parking committee. They've focused a lot on how we can improve parking. And I feel like we've had this focus down on Cochran Road because we know that there are hazardous situations there. And I think it's a good idea to see if the land trust would be willing to create some parking once this dam is done. It is a hard line to hold, but it's also, if you have 2 sets of rules, there will be people who will speak up about that.
Yeah, and then the other piece to that too is not only when you provide the parking, but think about how the parking is being provided. That little section that they've provided down at the bottom of West White Hill, those spots aren't marked, and so people park all which ways. And I can tell you, coming off of West White Hill, whenever I have to go out of the house, sometimes people are blocking the view and you can't see. And same thing on Route 2 when you're turning left, onto Route 2. If people are parked alongside of that road, even if they're off the path, you still can't see around them. And so how do we make that safe for everybody who's having to turn left?
Thank you. Yeah, we are working on those things. Ben?
I just wanted to say that the idea of having $200 parking ticket on Dugway and $10 on West White is no different than we're going to write tickets on Dugway and not on West White. It's you're absolutely targeting one group of people over another. And the idea that, well, it's a straightaway, so it's safe. Maybe on, under just the right conditions, that's true. But we're talking about ice skating, which is winter, and when dirt roads get slippery, and adding, narrowing the road down by a car width can substantially change the safety aspect of it, as far as somebody opening a car door as somebody's trying to go by, or two cars trying to pass each other in opposite directions with that narrow road. It is a safety issue.
Thank you, Ben. Bard, and then Jay.
So it sounds like we will have an interesting conversation when we open the traffic ordinance, including section 6A, parking regulations, roads,
Yes,
when we
when we
open the
get there.
topic.
Exactly. Jay?
Okay, in all seriousness, it's not my glib $10, $200 thing. I agree, we should enforce the law equally. I've gone down with White Hill Road past Gillette Pond when it's been crowded with skaters, and yes, there have been times you really can't get by. It's not safe.
Thank you, Jay. Kevin?
Yeah, so Kevin, Chair of the Parking Advisory Committee. I just wanted to let Jean-Ann know that we definitely hear her comment. I think it's a great comment. Balancing the access to safe, accessible parking. It's not something that we're taking lightly, and it's not easy. It's a hard balance, but if you don't have some controls in place, what ends up happening on Dugway is that traffic gets restricted to one lane, and then inevitably you're kind of setting rules for the people that are parking in the worst possible situation. So we definitely hear your comment, and we appreciate that feedback as well. And yeah, just we're trying to do our best in a difficult situation.
Thank you, Kevin. Yes, Bart.
One other suggestion when we get here, maybe we should try to ensure that the land trust is present, where at least in some manner represented, because some of these things bump into land trust
Yes,
issues.
and this
Two of the
does.
things mentioned tonight.
Yes, thank you. So we are going to move this to another agenda, a future agenda, when we have better information, and we will not be making a motion on this tonight. Moving on to consideration of appointing 2 select board members to the police chief hiring committee. Oh, am I right?
Yeah, you're right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Police chief hiring committee, and including a seat for Williston Community Justice Center on the committee. So currently there are 2 seats reserved for select board members on this committee. And we reviewed a timeline for the committee. So one of the things I had talked to Josh about, because it came up in our meeting, and then I was speaking to somebody else who's in a similar role in Massachusetts, that would we consider, because this is something I am interested in doing, and I will be rolling off the select board. Would the board consider appointing 1 select board member and in addition to or 2, but then when I roll off, not filling that with another select board member, but potentially filling it with another community member? Yes, Jay.
I was just gonna say, why can't we leave two on and have a community member? I mean, I'd be interested, I couldn't be on this because you two were we would have had a quorum, but I would be perfectly interested to be with this and I wouldn't want to kick Bart off. So I don't know why we would need to go down to one select board member.
Okay. I mean, most of our committees have one as a liaison, so that's,
But this
In-
is not just an average everyday thing.
that's true.
So what you would suggest, I'm sorry, this part
Yeah, no.
is two select board members. It could start with June, and if June is off the select board, it'd be June as a community member and another select board member.
Correct. And I think Krista Lee would be a very good person to have on it as well, but I would hate to lose your experience. I mean, it goes without saying.
So I will complete my letter of application for the committee as a community member.
Okay, but in the meantime, we can appoint you as a select board member.
You could do that as well.
So then are we gonna, sorry,
Does complicate it.
well, no, so right now we've got an 8-member committee. If we
Yes.
go this route, we'll have 2 select board members, assuming June is one of those. And then come March 7th, we'll have a 9-person committee, because June could transfer over to be a 4th community member plus a select board member. And we might add Krista Lee, and so we'll be up to 10.
Who are the other members? Just the other slots?
So it's town manager, a Richmond police representative, a local chief or VLCT enforcement professional. So there's 3, 2 select board members and 3 community members.
Okay, so Jim could still be one of the community members. Or there's somebody already in that seat,
Unless we feel like, because
unless we
The
kick
3.
somebody out.
we would fill them by the end of February I think we wanted to have this filled by February 24th for the hiring committee, which would mean that we'd have a community member.
And the timeline of reviewing applications starts in March.
Yeah, early March. So it'd probably late February, early March would probably start about the time you're beyond the. It straddles it like,
Unless we change the timeline and we start reviewing right after town meeting. And you don't put me on as a select board member, you elect 2 select board members tonight, and then I will apply to participate as a community member.
And we'll give it a hard thinking over.
And you can think about it.
No, I'm being facetious. You're probably the most valuable person in town, so
Probably not, but I would love to serve on the committee.
you know an enormous amount about police. Let's go to that thing. But I would be okay with doing that plan. Even if it's not me, if it's Bart and David, either way, I think.
Well, this part, I'm sorry, jumping in, that it seems to me that the bolus of this work, it sort of kind of starts just before town meeting day.
Yes,
And after town meeting day, there's at least one different person here
yes.
on the select board.
Right.
So I'm sort of sensitive, how do we get it started? But I'm also reluctant to intrude on a future complexion of a select board. Maybe that group, the select board after town meeting day, should formally state or review who the 2 select board members are. So maybe one is like an interim appointment of, I'm making this up on the moment.
I like where you're going.
An interim appointment of 2 select board members. If we left a community seat open or vacant.
Yeah.
I've seen this happen before
Mhm.
for short period. With the intention of appointing June into that. And then we could reboot after town meeting day and say, who are the 2 ongoing select board members then? And for the record, I'd be interested, but I won't fall on my sword over it. But
Okay.
And you were just saying the other day how now that you're retired, you have all this free time. Quote. I heard him say it.
How do you feel about that?
so are we gonna then bump out process or?
No,
No, so the timeline stays the same. We
Mhm.
appoint 2 select board members tonight. We keep 1 community member spot open. And then review that. Well,
At the
With the
first
intent of
select board
assigning-
meeting.
some
after
of the
town
work's gonna start like kind of, I mean,
by the end of the month.
it's gonna start a little before.
yes,
The-
so we'd have a vacant seat
you'd have a
for the
vacancy
very
for
beginning.
Community member, but then doesn't
Or
that,
the
The
select
other-
board member, actually, because June's gonna take that position, so.
but then in order to stay, if June's in the select board member seat, in order to stay on that after March 7th. there wouldn't be a seat for June unless we, I mean, and if we go to 9 members, 10 members, I mean, it's not the end of the world. It's a short-lived committee as well. Like, we could also just say, if one of the select board members is no longer on, then they stay on as a community member.
For simplicity. could we
Like,
have-
which is back to the original
Yes.
proposal, which I'd hesitate to get too big, but again, it's not, we're not meeting for 4 months. We're meeting 5 times in a month. I think we can make it work.
For simplicity, could we have June's select board slot autofill to a community member automatically, and then after town meeting, we just fill the select board slots?
Simpler.
That's sort of what I was proposing.
Yeah, I
permutation.
mean, that's,
You know, yeah, well, that was what you said initially, that is then you would become, then there's one select board member plus June, and that's how
We're
it runs.
refilling the community member
We're
position.
talking about a week and a half. How many meetings are they gonna have? between that?
It takes a few, but it's not, I mean, and it does take some time to organize.
But that makes June available in the meantime, and then,
Mhm.
and then.
And then the
after
board would just have, I guess, one member unless you chose to appoint
a period
another
of time.
person, and then we would have.
Okay,
9
I have
members.
another stupid idea.
Let's go.
I specialize in those. To avoid the person who hypothetically joins after town meeting day being behind the 8 ball, we could appoint 2 select board members tonight and no, this wouldn't work if they'd have a quorum.
Right.
It's a shell game.
Yeah.
Whatever works. It is unfortunate that whoever joins would have possibly missed out on some of the discussions.
yeah, yes. So you're right about that, Jay, but I don't know. Maybe we just appoint 2 select board members tonight. And then we determine after town meeting, based on what happens,
What to
hope
do.
I'm not, what to do. Because you're right, having someone new come on and sit on this committee would be tough, because we would have started the process. But I would be interested in serving. To complicate the matter.
Or simplify it, depending on which way you look at it.
Well, all we're doing tonight is appointing select board members.
2 select board members, that's what
We're not appointing community members yet.
No,
No,
and I think, like, to June's point, if she is one of the board members appointed tonight, then on the next meeting, which would be March 13th. We have a discussion about, is that still June, or what happens to that seat? And I think this
Yes.
would work.
Yeah, and whoever ends up being the new select board member can sit down with June over a cup of hot chocolate and download everything she knows.
And so, and we're in.
And we could increase the size of the committee at that point too. It's not beyond the realm of.
That's right.
possibility.
This is not set in statute.
Right, it's not.
right.
And we're intending to appoint community members on February 21st at that meeting.
So that won't actually, so that would, the way
No.
we've done that, we're doing it here is, it'll be myself and the 2 select board members who are appointed will then decide on the 3 community members. Because this isn't really a select board.
We're not.
No, it
applying
doesn't
this.
come back.
I see.
But isn't the deadline February 24th?
So the deadline that we have in the timeline is to form the hiring committee by February 24th. We're gonna get applications from the community by February 17th. So then that next week, we would take a day or so to look through, figure out which 3 members, that would be myself plus the 2 select board members, which 3 community members we want to have on. That would be the appointment process. It's not done in a meeting. It would be done by the 3 of us, and we'd inform the community who we went with, who's on the committee. Because again, I mean, it's not, the whole thing isn't a select board process necessarily, it's a town manager process.
But it's still an open meeting process, right?
But the hiring committee is not an open meeting process.
No.
Because this is a review of resumes and it's interviews.
Oh, in which case, why
Because-
couldn't you have 3 if it's not an open meeting process?
Well, because the minute,
You'd have to warn it as.
I think when you have 3.
It's a quorum.
It would
be
have
a
to
quorum.
be considered open meeting if you
Okay.
had 3.
So you want to avoid 3. It is a good reboot to remind people that it's the town manager's hiring
Yes.
process. So as we're talking about what to do here, we're actually advising.
Yeah.
town
Right.
manager.
Right,
So I
it's
guess-
just advising.
Okay, so Josh, then in that case, I think I'll just shut up and defer to whatever you think is best.
I think appoint 2 select, I like Barb's idea, appoint 2 select board members now. And then when we come back on March 13th, if those 2 members are no longer on the board, one of them, we can adjust
out
and
from
maybe
there.
add somebody on or maybe not, depending on what the will of the board is at that point, because it will be a new select board.
Or what the will of the manager is. if they-
We
Right.
can have a discussion, as I always try to do with the board in these types of situations.
So cutting to the chase, our decision tonight to get it started is 2 current select board members to get it started with Josh. Yes,
Yes.
And do you want to be the other besides June, Bard?
I would, but I think it's worth a discussion.
I move to appoint June and Bard to the police hiring committee.
Then I will second that.
Yeah, whoever.
I don't want to have too much.
Okay, any further discussion? Okay, please state your name and your vote.
This is Jeff,
David, I.
June abstain.
Bard abstain. It carries with 3.
Yeah.
Yes, it carries with 3.
3 carries 8.
Okay,
Who's the magic number?
Are we making the decision about Crystal Lee tonight?
that will be the committee. I mean, we could talk about
I
it.
mean,
Can we make a recommendation?
I think,
Mhm.
yeah, and go ahead.
So I would strongly recommend to include her on the committee. It seems like, she has really valuable input.
Mhm.
Crystal Lee, for folks who don't know, she's the director of the Williston Community Justice Program, and she has really relevant experience.
Yep, I think we can add her on. I mean, we'll bring up
We
to
don't have to
9,
vote
but
on that, but
no, it's
Kinds of good
short, it's
numbers.
short-lived process. I
Yeah.
think we'll make it work out.
Yeah. All right,
All right. Anything else on this topic?
more to come.
Okay. Where are we time-wise? All right. Moving on to consideration of selling the Tesla police cruiser. And I see that there's a number of people here who I believe are going to want to speak to this. I should have said this at the beginning of the meeting, but if you have comments to make, please try to keep your comments to 2 to 3 minutes so that we are not here till 10 o'clock talking about this one item. So we have, we've been discussing the Tesla police cruiser for a while. Jeff has done some research and provided information related to this topic in our packet. And we have a memo from Chief Herrick, Interim Chief Herrick, regarding the assessment of the Tesla as a police cruiser. So we will open it up for discussion. Jeff, do you want to start?
Sure. So, I have been reluctant to make a decision, for us to make a decision on this, in part because I knew it would take some time to try to figure out. This is an experiment, that was proposed by, Chief, Kapitansky. And in order to complete that experiment required, collecting information and data to see what we learned out of it. I knew that would take some time. Personally, I haven't been feeling the urgency to make this decision. And I was right. It took some time. It actually took quite a bit of time over the past 3 weeks to try to discern what the costs and the savings might be. But I did so. I collected data from WEX, our fuel supplier for the cruisers, the conventional cruisers. I collected data on the Tesla. I could not collect all of the data on the Tesla because in order to get the data, you have to contact Tesla and they will send it to you within 2 to 4 weeks. This is handy. And they did. And they actually did it in about 3 weeks, about 2 days after I sent you the memo. But suffice it to say that my estimates were close. They were reasonably close. And what I learned is that in the year that we had the Tesla, we drove it 20,000 miles. And I estimate that it saved in fuel savings, at least $5,000 in fuel savings over that period. Another piece of the experiment that Chief Kapitansky proposed was that he expected there would be maintenance savings as well. In part because the Tesla has 120,000 mile 8-year warranty, which is much longer than our current conventional cars. And so he felt that it would be possible and even likely that we could extend our rotation schedule. We have a 4-year rotation schedule right now for our current cruisers. With 120,000 mile warranty, we could extend that a year or two. And he estimated that would save the town $11,000 a year. I don't know, it's yet to be seen. What I do know is I have an electric vehicle, and I know it takes a lot less maintenance. It's a lot less. There are many fewer moving parts. And all the studies that I've seen on electric vehicles, the majority of the savings are in maintenance savings, even more so than fuel savings. There was talk about depreciation, that, you know, we should sell it in order to not allow it to depreciate further. In my experience buying a car, the time that it depreciates the most is the first year you drive it off the lot. In fact, the first day you drive it off the lot is the biggest depreciation you get. So, you know, I question whether future depreciation will be as much as it was that first year. I know my car, I was looking at selling it this past year. I've owned it for 3 years and it's worth what I paid for it. I bought it used. There's been a lot of talk about the cage, that you can't transport detainees because it will not fit a cage. I talked to a sergeant in a neighboring police department who used to be in the state police as a tactical officer. And I talked to him about that issue of transporting detainees. And he suggested that a cage is not an essential piece of equipment. It may be desirable, but it's not essential. And the way you transport detainees is you handcuff their hands behind their back, and then you put the seatbelt on. And people who haven't put in a child car seat lately, there's a lot to learn about it. And one of the things that you learn is if you pull the strap all the way out and then let it go, it ratchets and it locks. So the detainee is back, and the seatbelt ratchets back and you can't move. So whether you do that in the back seat or the front seat, different officers have different preferences. And sometimes officers prefer to do it in the front seat. Which brings me to my final point, and I think it's really the most important one. I don't know. I don't think we know. June maybe know more than we do, because she has a family history with police. However, I don't think it should be our decision right now. We've had 3 police chiefs in the last, 3 years? The 2 police chiefs that have had experience with this vehicle, the first one loved it. In fact, it was the most used cruiser we had. We put 20,000 miles on it. We didn't put that much mileage on any other car. This police chief doesn't. Who knows what the next one will think? And we're looking at hiring one within the next month. It seems to me that we should leave this decision to that chief. We don't really even know what size department we'll have in 6 months. You know, we're budgeted for 5. We've got 3 now. We hire a new chief. It could be a completely different regimen. Could be a completely different force with different dynamics. So my feeling is this is not a decision that we should be making tonight. If we were to sell it, we would be down a car if we had a full force, which would be problematic. And my understanding is you can't just buy one whenever you want one. You need to do it a certain time of year, and that's passed. So
Thank you, Jeff. Barn?
I wrestled with this and I can kind of go back and forth, but as I thought about it, is it worth liquidating an asset and like getting rid of it and not having to maintain it? And there's an appeal to that. But it's been a while. We've been down-staffed. We've been talking about the right replacement cycle for cruisers for several years. And we finally, 3 or 4 years ago, if I remember correctly, came up with a way to sort of flatten it out. But as we approach this strategic planning exercise and hiring a chief, after all that time, I'm somewhat inclined to say, let's defer to the chief, the next chief. The other thing I'd say, it's my perception, and I don't know the numbers, Jeff, you probably do, that the cost per mile, just road miles of the Tesla is way less than one of the cruisers, right?
way less. It's, Cruiser's about 32 cents a mile and Tesla's about 5 cents a mile.
So where I was going is that in the meantime, what if we say the long commutes that some of our staff has, use the Tesla because that financially makes sense. We'd rather pay 5 cents a mile than
35 cents a mile.
and I don't think, I mean, the federal government says it's 56 cents or
Well,
something.
that includes maintenance and
Well, right.
insurance too, so.
Well, so where I'm going is if we add up all the costs of the Tesla per mile, it's gonna be substantially less than all the cost of the gas vehicle per mile. And that might be a responsible way of maintaining it in working order and using it as a low-cost commuting vehicle pending the arrival of a new chief. That's just one.
We should,
Thank you.
you know, exercising all of our vehicles right now.
Would you like to say something, Steve?
Initially, I was opposed to selling a Tesla. And then I was seeing it sitting in the parking lot depreciating, and I thought we should sell the Tesla. But after thinking on it, I'm now back to my original thought of we should not sell the Tesla, largely for the reasons Jeff just illustrated. Plus, a Tesla sitting in a parking lot doesn't depreciate the way an internal combustion engine vehicle sitting in a parking lot depreciates.
Oh, like, how would you know?
Yeah. And I agree. I think this should be a decision the next chief makes. I always am really cautious about stepping on department heads' shoulders, telling them what equipment they have, telling them what equipment they should be using. I'd rather have them defer to us and say, this is the equipment we want to be using. So like Jeff, I don't feel comfortable making this decision. And lastly, I fall back on the feedback that I've gotten, and I've gotten considerable feedback, and it's 4-1 saying people are opposed to selling it, which, you know, I'm one person in a community of 4,100 people, so I weigh heavily on what people tell me, and I try to bring those concerns here. And 4-1, the feedback that I've gotten is we should keep the Tesla. So long story short, I would be opposed to selling it.
Jay?
So I would sell the Tesla yesterday. I'll explain why. I'm not going to keep my mouth shut just because there's obviously not going to be a motion to sell it with what we're hearing. But I defer to the police chief we have, who has made a very good case for why it's not a suitable police car. Not only does it not have room for a cage, he's also made the note in his memo that there's no way to have a locked rifle and shotgun rack in it. So you basically having to put them in the trunk, which is not really as secure as a proper rack. Furthermore, as anybody who's done a ride along with the police knows, they have a ton of powered equipment in that car that drains electricity very quickly. And from what Ben has said in his memo, and perhaps we'd like to have Ben speak on this, if we have all that stuff powered up, it has to go sit at a charger for multiple hours each day just to be able to function, unless you say Ben's making that up. And I don't see any reason why we would say that. So absent us getting a supercharger and absent somebody coming up with magically fitting equipment that will make it a proper police car, I don't see why we should be telling Ben, keep the car because we think it's cool. Those are my 2 cents.
Thank you, Jay. I would like to, I agree with Jay. And this isn't about electric versus, you know, a gas vehicle. That's not what it's about for me at all. Absolutely, we should be moving towards electric. I think based on the information we've gotten from Ben, and I think it's important to listen to Ben. He is our current acting chief. I don't know why we would wait for another chief to come in and tell us what he thinks when we've got the feedback from all the officers. And we've heard from all the officers that it's not the vehicle that they would want to be patrolling in. And I think that, you know, I've talked to Ben, and we know that, you know, Chevy by 2024 will be producing a vehicle that's specifically designed to be a cruiser that's electric. So this really isn't about electric versus gas powered, because I think we know that that's the direction we want to go in. It's definitely the path of the future. But we currently have 6 cruisers. We are not going to hire a chief in the next month. I'd put my bank account on it. It's going to take longer than that. I mean, we'd be lucky to have, you know, time to go through all the applications in the next month. And then we have to go through the hiring process. We have 6 cruisers sitting in our parking lot. We have 3 police officers, 1 who is on military leave until September. So that means we need 2 cruisers, really, and we have 6 in our parking lot. It is financially irresponsible to have 6 cruisers sitting in our parking lot. Worst case scenario, we are successful in getting a chief in here in the next couple months and hiring the full-time position that we are down. We still will have the vehicle that's reserved for our part-timers, which we have none. So we have an inventory that is sitting there, and maybe it doesn't deteriorate as quickly, the Tesla, but there are at least 3 cars, if not 4, that are currently not being used, and it's financially irresponsible to have them sitting there. So I think that we need to make a decision that's going to be in the best interest of our taxpayers, because if we wait a couple months and then the chief comes in, the new chief comes in, and we take his opinion, I just feel like we're, or her, right? His or her opinion, we're kind of putting aside what our current officers have told us. And I think that is not what we should be doing of leaders in our town.
Good points.
Thank
Did we
you.
hear from Ben? Before we call in the public, did we hear
Yes.
from Ben?
Yes, Ben, would you share your feelings on this?
Absolutely. And I don't know that I'm gonna say anything that's gonna swing the whole group one way or another. I agree, electric vehicles are where we should be. I just not that electric vehicle. To respond to some of what's been said, Jeff, you're absolutely correct. We don't have to have a cage. You can transport prisoners without a cage. The problem with that thought is I don't fit in the car. I mean, I know I'm a fairly big guy, but I don't fit in the car without my hands handcuffed behind my back. If someone were to put my hands behind my back and then try and cram me into that passenger seat, it's just not going to fit. It's not. And on top of that, there's also a computer in front of the person who's in the passenger seat. The statement that they can be put in the back is, as far as I know, a violation of any department's policy that doesn't have a cage. If you don't have a cage, you transport in the front seat, because you certainly don't want to put somebody behind you who's not separated from you while you're driving down the road, whether they're combative or not. That's just a safety issue. The idea of selling the car, right now we're in a position where the select board has opted to not purchase cars for 2 years. As I've said before, that once that 3rd year rolls around and we're going to purchase a car, that doesn't mean that we can just run down to the local dealership and pick up a police car. We have to order it, wait for it to be built and sent to us, and then we have to order the parts to go in it, and then send the car away to have the parts installed. That all takes time. And as it is outlined on the town's website right now, we should be hiring a police chief in June. That will put us at 4 full-time officers, and I'm assuming that police chief will want to hire a 5th officer. And depending upon where that chief comes from, they may have somebody they want to bring in, or they may want to do a whole search, put it out to the public to hire. But either way, I would like to think that we'll be back up to 5 by next summer. And so the idea of getting rid of the car and not replacing it, I don't know is the best way to go either. So there are a lot of arguments for either side. But I think we need to weigh all of the options and figure out what the best thing to do is.
Thank you, Ben. Jay.
Okay, just wanted to bring out a couple of things. that were said by previous speakers. One of them is the math relating to how many cruisers do we need. You've heard that we have 3 officers, of which one is unavailable to us till September. People have tended to refer to the extra cars. Well, that's what our per diems use. We don't currently have any per diems. It's Allison and Ben for the time being, which is too bad. I just read today about how the town of Randolph lost its entire police department and had to contract with the Orange County Sheriff because people just left one by one until there was no police department left. And I fear that that could happen to us. So I'm very glad that we're taking action to try to restaff the department. But right now we have what we have. I don't think it's good use of a car to have it sit there, not getting used when it could be, the money could be put in reserves and used for other purposes. And I also would like to clarify, just in case anybody got the wrong impression, I am not by any means opposed to new technology and new energy. I have on the top of my house many, many solar panels. I have a pair of Tesla Powerwall batteries in my garage, which I'm very happy with. I've got an order in with Toyota there on Sheldon Road for a new hybrid. That's going to unfortunately be my wife's car because she has dibs on it. But I like this technology, and I'm very, very pleased to hear from June that there is going to be a proper police cruiser electric vehicle offered in a couple of years. By which time that makes sense. That would be getting to be on the schedule where we would want to be replacing a car anyway. So I would hope that, God willing, and the creeks don't rise, each subsequent vehicle we buy would be an electric car. But as Ben or somebody said, we're in favor of electric police cars, just not this one.
Thank you, Jay. Kara.
Thank you. As you're aware, there was a front porch forum posting about burning money with police cruisers, and you chose not to purchase new ones. Thank you for hearing the public on that. On the ratios that David has kicked out with how many people who have reached out to him on a 4-to-1 ratio, I have a much larger ratio that people have reached out to me going the opposite direction, saying, thank you for bringing up these topics. Thank you for bringing up the issue of everybody's looking down on their cell phones. Am I speaking? Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
We're looking
Okay.
at front forum. That's what I'm
Okay.
looking at.
Just listening
Okay.
intently. I do.
And people emailed me directly. So if they needed to reach out to you all tonight, I should have got on the horn and told them all to email you so that you could hear what they had to say as well. So I'm not just speaking for myself. I really think that it's a safety issue, this vehicle, because it's not safe. These are not children that they are strapping into the back seat. They're not children's size. They're fully grown adults that could be even larger than Ben. So with everything that we have going on in our society, with the things that we are trying to help with our police officers and support them with training and tools and equipment to do their job safely for both themselves and the public, this car is just a commuter car. And Jeff's even said so with his calculations of savings for mileage and put it on the most with the chief who used it the most because he was the one that was using it. So as a commuter car, I don't think that's the best investment for my tax dollar. We do not need to, and you can correct me, June, if I'm wrong, with the contract that you have with the police union, we do not need to provide them everybody their own car, their own personal car. So when we say the ratio of 3 officers to 6 cruisers, we could still have 5 officers and 5 cruisers, and 1 could be used by others. But we have been waiting for 5 officers, a chief and 5 officers, for over 5 years. So
Thank you, Kara.
this wanting to save, it really needs to be done because the Tesla's value, this isn't about it depreciating as much as its value is at a good number now, a high number. It has more value than those 2017 cars that you have sitting there not being used as well. And there's so many times that I go see, and we're going to even see it now if we are down to 2 offices again, we're going to see 4 police cruisers parked collecting snow, having to be shoveled off, having to be driven around just to drive them around so the brakes don't seize up. all of those pieces of the puzzle, you're adding a burden on the existing police force to maintain these vehicles, to go switch a car and drive it around and make sure it's functioning properly, when we want them to be able to serve the community and have the tools at hand for the vehicle that they are in, it's working, and they're going and being able to do their job. So if you need to hear from a lot more of the public, that can happen. But the public thought, based on your last select board meeting, that you, David, were supporting possibly getting rid of the Tesla. Everybody has a right to change their mind. I understand that. But I don't think the public realized that the pendulum was swinging the other way.
Thank you, Kara. Steve?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Sorry, I had to get off mute. Well, first, I'd like to see the town working towards, continuing to work towards the climate change goals that we do have in the town plan. But I think people are agreed, or people understand, that electric vehicles are a very cost-effective way for the town to do that and to reduce its climate impact in general. So I'm glad to hear the comments that people have made to that effect. I do want to acknowledge that other municipalities and police departments across the country are moving to electric vehicles. And my impression is that the previous police chief was pretty happy with the Tesla, and it got quite a bit of use for the year that it was in use. So to the degree feasible, I just would like to say I'd like to see it held on to if it can be put to good use. I haven't heard the discussion, I'm sure there has been, but I haven't heard the discussion on why the Tesla is maybe the only cruiser being considered for sale. But if there is use, even for the town's somewhat unusual potential use as a commuting vehicle, that's a fair amount of use. And if that is a feasible way to hold on to it, I'd certainly like to see that happen. So I'd like to see the police department make the effort to overcome its shortcomings, if that can be done, and continue to use the Tesla, and for the town to continue to work to meet its climate goals. And I certainly would like the police department to move in that direction in the future. So thank you.
Thank you, Steve. Connie?
So I heard Jay mention sell it and put it in reserves, and I just want to be clear. If that were to be sold right now, that would go towards the revenue police property sold line, which, if unassigned funds exist as a whole across all departments, would get sucked up into unassigned funds. Then when we do the fiscal year 25 budget, we could say we're using X number of dollars to fund the police capital reserve line. However, we do need to keep in mind, we're spending 500,000 unassigned fund in 23, 500,000 restricted in 24. We don't know what's going to be left at the end of 24. We could have other emergencies come up that those unassigned funds may not exist. But I just wanted to make it clear, it can't go immediately and straight into a reserve.
Thank you, Connie. We have talked about that at previous meetings as well, that there is a path to get that into that reserve account. And you're right, we do not know what our reserves will be at the end of the year, but our history in the last few years has been that there is money there, particularly because we know that there have been savings on the police side for the last couple of years. Yeah, vacancies. Yes, thank you. Virginia.
Yes, hi. So speaking as a resident, not necessarily as a planning commission member, but with my planning hat on, I do want to just reiterate the point that has been made that all of our climate goals, town plan, the county-wide plan, the state plan, is requiring a rapid electrification of small vehicles, cars, and light trucks. So I sort of disagree that it's not about electric versus gas, June's point. I think it definitely is about certainly the appearance of electric versus gas. I think selling the Tesla at this point in this way just gives the appearance of, oh, okay, electric vehicles aren't going to work. You know, I think we need to be modeling the fact that all of our vehicles are going to have to become electric. And, you know, speaking as a planner, I think that supports what's written in all of our documents, and hanging on to the vehicle at this point and making it work, you know, making all of our fleet electric is going to be a huge challenge anyway. We understand that. There's going to be all kinds of pain and difficulty. We're going to have to do it. It's something we have to do. So let's try to make this vehicle work for us now that we have it. Instead of taking a loss on it, let's appear at least as if we're moving in the right direction and model this behavior, hang on to it, use it for what it can be used as long as possible. When another vehicle comes along that's better, that's electric, trade it in, make sure all of our future vehicles are going electric. But this is a good start, and it really looks like a step backwards to be saying, oh, we can't deal with it. We're sorry, you know, let's get rid of it. So I would say hold on to it for now.
Thank you, Virginia. Yes, Chuck. Can you come up to the,
Oh, sorry.
thank you.
Chuck Gilroy. I've ridden in Teslas. I don't fit in them. I certainly don't fit in the backseat of Teslas. I think we all are on the same page saying that we want to electrify our fleet. We want to move forward. I'm not willing to do that if we compromise the safety of our officers. You know, if our officers can't, you know, I can't imagine running to my trunk to get my shotgun when things go wrong. You know, that's not, I couldn't live with myself at that if I made the choice between an electric vehicle and the safety of our officers. I think that has to trump everything. I think we've got a fine police department now. Let's not wait for a new chief. Let's listen to what we're being told right now. And the first chance we get, let's get rid of all those gas guzzlers and get the right electric vehicles in here and feel like our officers are safe.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Chuck. Steve, do you still have your hand up?
No, I just been holding it in the air, but
Okay, no problem.
So in the interest of moving this along.
Yes.
just, I'm going to propose the motion to move to enter in a public bidding process to sell the Tesla police cruiser with a minimum bid of $36,000.
That's it.
Minimum.
What do you think it should be?
Allison, did you want to?
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I thought I was muted, but I think that for what we have out there, no. As the smallest officer, I don't feel it's safe, but I've got to agree with our local residents that have said that we've invested the money. Has anyone looked into trading up to a larger model?
Not that I have heard.
So why don't we start there?
It's not on, we are not budgeted to buy a cruiser this year, which is probably why we haven't had that conversation.
Excuse me, June.
Yes.
Excuse me, June. It's Kara.
Hold on, Kara. I know that Katie has had her hand raised. Katie?
We have a motion on the floor.
We can keep discussion going after a motion.
Well, we need a second.
Oh, second.
Okay, thank you. All right, now we can continue the discussion. Katie?
Oh, yeah, can you hear me? So I had switched to headphones. Can you all hear me? Okay.
Yeah.
I just had a question about somebody had raised the possibility of using it as a quote commuter car to save on the gas expense, since all of our current officers are using their gas vehicles as commuter cars. I guess my two questions are all officers required to come to town center when they begin their shift? And second question is, do they go to calls from their houses? Because if they have to come to town center anyway, you might as well use it as a commuter car. But if they are going out on calls directly from their homes, then that does put the safety concern in play.
Thank you, Katie. Ben, I mean, I know that you could very well be going out from your home to a call, but would you address that?
Absolutely. Officers are not required to go to the town office when they sign on. And I frequently go to a call, not necessarily from my house where I'm off duty, sitting here, doing whatever, and I get called in to go to respond to something, but I have almost an hour-long drive to work. And oftentimes while I'm on that drive, state police will be dispatched to something. And rather than let them take it, I call them and say, hey, I'm already on my way. I'll go deal with that. So I often respond to something at the beginning of my shift, or, before I go to the office. And I think I heard someone say something earlier about officers not, something about the union contract and cruisers being assigned. Not everybody gets their own. Right now, as it stands, the union contract states that every officer, every full-time officer, will have a take-home car.
Mhm.
I think that covers the question.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Kara. Oh,
Thank you, Ben. That was me who asked about, and I thought the contract was just for full-time officers. Thank you for clarifying that. I wanted to refresh everybody's memory. I'm the one that brought this up, and my recommendation was that you trade in the Tesla for a hybrid, something that was larger, that you use the 8,500 from the sale of the 7th car that was sold during this fiscal year. The 8,500 plus, I think they were giving you trade-in of 38,000 trade-in for it. So your lowest bid should be higher than the trade-in value of 38,000. And that you actually go for, you could get a new vehicle in your fleet that is electric, that is doing what we should be doing as a community, but the Tesla is just the wrong size for what you need for it. And you could even sell one of the 2017s to go toward it. So you're not hitting any tax dollars. It's all turning over of assets. You're getting rid of assets that you can't use and getting that asset that can plug into the charger we have and can be used by the officers right now. It might take a year to get it. So that's why you should do it that way.
thank you, Kara. Jeff.
So can I respond to a few of these?
Yes.
Okay. I agree that we should be using all the vehicles that we have in one way or another. I mean, it doesn't help the conventional vehicles to be sitting there not being used as well. We have 4 parked, 4, maybe 5 parked in front of the library right now. And they should be used. And they could be rotated. As far as commuting goes, yes, the previous police chief, Chief Kapitansky, he had an hour commute to get here. We had 2 officers, that are on our payroll right now that live an hour away. Kevin Wilson lives in East Corinth, I believe. And Chief Eric lives in Brandon. So that's very similar mileage, one way or the other. And that may be one of the ways that it was used a lot. If anything, that would have improved the gas mileage. Our current gas mileage on our conventional cruisers is about 13.5 miles to the gallon. They're really terrible. Partly because they idle like a lot. I've heard from various different people that they were idling twice in the past month in our parking lot for like over 2 hours. That really hurts our gas mileage.
Absolutely.
As far as taking care of our taxpayers, no matter what we do, we're not changing the budget. We're not, the budget is in the can right now, and it's not going to affect the taxpayers this year at all. What it would do is it would add to our reserves, and maybe not a reserve fund, but it would add to our unassigned funds. So we're not changing. If we sold it, all we're doing is we're putting money in the bank, and we're getting rid of an asset. Right now, one of our conventional cruisers has over 100,000 miles on it. I would think about that one. If we needed to sell a car, I would think about that one. I don't know if that one will last another 2 years, but the Tesla only has 20,000 miles on it. I think we ought to think of it as a fleet and not as individual cars. And the last thing that I'll say is what this what the sergeant in a neighboring town suggested as far as a cage goes. I understand that a cage going behind the back seat is unworkable in this vehicle. One of the things he suggested was a half cage, which goes laterally. You know, and some of the advantages to that is that from his perspective it was good for storage. The other seat is good for storage, things like traffic cones and things like that don't fit easily in the trunk. That's maybe your coat, but electric is definitely coming. The New York NYPD is buying 150 Ford Mach-E's, police cars. The Burlington Police Department has a half dozen EV charging stations in front of their station right now. The Tesla can be charged at the town center building with an adapter, which we have. So it could be charged here, ready to go in the morning. And one thing that I have learned by owning an electric vehicle is that it's different. You think about it different, you have to deal with it differently. And charging is a different exercise than going to a gas station. So one of the documents that I provided you was tips on how to deal with a Tesla. What they recommend at a supercharger, the level 3 supercharger that they have in Williston, is you do not want to charge it to 100%. In fact, you can damage the car if you do that too many times. You want to charge it to 80%. And if you let it go down to nothing, that can damage the car as well. So I don't know when the last time it was charged, but it really should be charged. That's a maintenance thing, just keeping it charged.
Right.
So I don't think any of our cars should be just sitting around. It's not good for any of them.
Right.
My understanding of the contract is they are to be provided with a car. It doesn't say which car or that a car is theirs to use. We get to tell them what cars we have, and they could use any one of our 6 cars at any given time. And we really should be doing that. So again, I think it's a management issue, you know, and I think our next police chief will have a lot of management issues to deal with. Vehicles, I think, should be one of them.
Okay, I'm gonna call on Connie and then okay, there's 4 people up there. We're gonna refer to you, and then there is a motion on the floor in the second. Connie.
So I actually like Allison's idea. We need to keep in mind, we did budget for the purchase of 2 cruisers this year, so we are raising taxes for the purchase of 2 cruisers this year. However, we did recently decide we would not purchase them, but that doesn't mean that we have not raised the taxes. Maybe the solution is we don't buy 2 new cruisers, but we do trade up with the Tesla. So we use the benefit of what it's worth, take what we've already raised taxes for to put towards the rest of upgrading to an electric car that does work for the police department.
Thank you, Connie. Jay.
If that can be, if what Connie just said, and as others have mentioned, trading up can be done, I'm all in favor of that. Again, I think electric cars are great. If we can get a larger Tesla that could have a cage, could have a rack, could safely transport prisoners, I'd be all over that. So if that can be done, I'd be enthusiastic endorser. If that can't be done for various reasons, it comes down to me to be safety. I'm not willing to tell our police officers that we're going to compromise their safety because we're interested in saving gas. I mean, that's just what it comes down to for me.
Thank you, Jay. Virginia.
Yes, well, I like that suggestion also that Connie made, because I was going to suggest that the way to show that we're committed to the transition to electric vehicles is to trade this electric vehicle, which seems to be not working well, for another electric vehicle. So if you weren't going to purchase another vehicle at this time, then I would suggest waiting so that you can trade the Tesla for another electric vehicle. If we can trade now the Tesla in for another electric vehicle that works, then that seems like that would be a good solution. Otherwise, I was, interested in the point of trading in one of the other cars if you wanted to not have so many cars on the lot, holding on to the Tesla until, that would certainly reassure people that we were working towards the electric car transition. So, thank you.
Thank you, Virginia. Bard.
I have a related question for the officers, the chief and the officer today. So when does the shift of one of you's driving to Richmond from your home, when does your shift actually start?
When we get to Richmond,
So when you hit the town line,
yes,
and the town line is how far from the town center building on average?
I, depending upon what direction you go, I'd say on average, 5 or 6 miles.
So and this was really for the benefit of the folks who are here tonight. So really of all the commute is off shift until the last 5 miles, which is under 10 minutes, presumably. And just exploring the context of using the commuting car to get here. And I think in a lot of departments, what you do is you drive to your workplace, you get out of your car, you get in your cruiser, and posing whether that's a viable approach in the meantime, looking for sort of a compromise between the mileage benefits and climate benefits of the current Tesla vehicle and the safety of cruisers, that you come here. And it's a shift in, I think, behavior and what we think of as, there are things you might not want to do in the Tesla, so you'd come here and it would be a delay of whatever. 15
Not if they're
minutes.
going to a call, not if they're going to a call. That's what Ben said. So if they get called out, if they're on call and go to a call, they could be going from one end of the town to the other end of the town. And they're taking and blue lighting it and going as fast as they can if it's an emergency. So they're not going to stop and switch the Tesla.
First noting that people should be recognized by the chair before they jump in. Part of my comment would be that it's a fair point if somebody is on call that they would take a cruiser. And my point is really, if you're not on call, if that ever happens.
Great point.
It's my observation. I think a significant percentage of police officers in the United States drive to work and get in a cruiser at their workstation.
Can I just make a comment? Excuse me, I
Yes.
apologize. I had to raise my, I would greatly appreciate that if we're going to be speaking for law enforcement, if we would let Chief Herrick answer those questions rather than making assumptions, please.
Thank you, Allison.
So it'd probably be useful for the audience to know that, is that Officer Dangler, Alice?
Yes,
So that's.
she identified herself earlier as,
It just says Allison on it.
yeah, but earlier when she
Earlier.
came on, she identified herself as one of the police officers. Okay, so we have a motion on the floor and a second. So it is time to take a vote. We have a lot of information in front of us.
Did we establish a minimum?
And that is
The
something
motion as presented, used the figure that was in the memo of $36,000.
which was considered a trade-in when we looked at it, and the determination was it would probably sell more than what you would get for a trade-in, but
Do
that's,
we want to amend the motion just to throw it out there and say 42,000?
You'd have to modify the motion.
I
That's what I'm
am
saying.
open to an amendment, a friendly amendment to modify the figure from $36,000 to a different figure.
I would like to move to amend to 42,000.
I would accept that as friendly amendment.
okay,
I'll second the amendment.
all right. Are we ready for a vote? Please state your name and your vote.
This is Jeff Nay.
J.I.
David, nay?
This Bard, I can't make my mind up. I'm going to abstain, and people may see that as waffling, but literally I'm informed by my experience in other venues where if you aren't sure what to do, you sometimes, you let it season. So I'm going to abstain.
June, I.
So the motion does not carry.
It does not. Okay, we will move on to our next agenda item.
I have one follow-up suggestion.
Yes.
I think if we were going to propose a sale, and several people have brought up a new idea of, can we get a trade-in for another vehicle? that would be different than the motion that we just, that
Yes.
just failed to carry. And
Yeah.
so that might be a way of moving forward to say, if there was a plan to trade this in for a vehicle that was
Bigger.
and available. And I will just also say, I'm concerned with the number of vehicles that we have sitting in the lot for most of the time.
Sort of to piggyback on what Bard just said, perhaps trading the 2017 with over 100,000 miles and this car in on something bigger and electric, I would be very supportive of that.
I would as well. Jay,
Can we make a motion to direct the trade-in of this car? Is that an acceptable motion?
I think that's.
well, I think the suggestion
Yeah.
is
Do
two
we just-
cars. We would-
Okay, but at this point, it would be in order to move that we, I mean, that we
Can we
see.
do that right now?
I think we can look into a trade and come back to the next meeting and see.
Okay,
do
that's
that.
what I would like to see happen.
Look into it, trade-in of two cars.
Yeah.
For an EV
Right,
that's intended to be a cruiser.
right. I think that's the best plan I've heard yet.
And the Mach-E is, there are a number of police departments that are using the Ford Mach-E.
Cool.
Ben has his hand up.
Yes, Ben.
I just want to say that if the intention is going to be to try to get trade-in value for the next meeting, I would like some direction from someone. I don't care who it comes from, as to what it is we're trading it in toward. Are we looking at another Tesla, but a larger model, like I think it's the Model Y is their SUV sized Tesla? Do you want the Mach-E? Do you want to see if we can trade it in and pre-buy the whatever it is that Chevy's coming out with in 24 for the police model? I would like some kind of direction as to what it is that I'm trading it in for, because that's going to make a difference as to where I go to get the trade-in value.
Right, and I think we're gonna maybe need more than 2 weeks to do all of this, because I think there's you've already done some work, Ben, and I appreciate that. I think we've got to answer some questions, and because we have already decided as a board that we were not going to buy a cruiser this year. So if we're now deciding we're going to buy a cruiser, that brings up a whole nother agenda item. So let us sort of figure out this before you start doing a lot of homework.
Yeah, I would absolutely agree with that. I'm not sure this is the most important thing for
Right.
our police chief to be doing right now.
Right.
Particularly if we're only down to 2. So.
Right. Okay. Kara?
Jeff, can you possibly be the one to make sure whatever electric vehicle we go with works with our charging station? Because if we even go with another Tesla and it won't work with this charging station, we potentially have the same problem that we have with this Tesla. I just want to make sure somebody who knows what they're doing understands it. And I think you're on mute.
Kara, I can answer your question. I do know that the charging station we have in the parking lot does work with the Tesla. You can charge it to 100% with a level 2 charger, the one that we have in the parking lot. If it were parked here overnight and any given day, it would be fully charged in the morning and could be used during that day, or could be used to go. It would have 300 miles range, which should be plenty to get to Brandon or East Corinth and back.
Thank you.
Okay, we're gonna move on to the next topic because we've spent a lot more time than we had allocated
Thank you.
on this one. Yes, thank you all. Oh, Ben, did you have another?
No, I was gonna just say that any electric vehicle can be charged at our office. I would like to point out that if I'm leaving it there to charge overnight, I can't use it as a commuter vehicle.
Right.
And
That has changed the whole conversation.
if I'm using it as a commuter vehicle, I can't charge it. The way things are right now, I cannot charge it at my house. If somebody wants to entertain the idea of installing a charger, we can certainly look into that. But as it stands right now, I cannot charge it at home.
Okay, thank you, Ben.
And as a fellow officer, if this vehicle is put into the line to be rotated, as some of the select board members would like to see, I appreciate the 300 miles. However, I'm going to tell you that the way that it's driven is going to affect that mileage greatly. And transporting a prisoner up to St. Albans would potentially be a little dicey based on that. So there may need to be some adjustment.
I would not recommend that.
Well, that's part of the game, unfortunately, sir. That's the nature of the beast, and that's where I end up sometimes. So if I'm having to take unnecessary measures to switch vehicles, that's not doable.
Makes sense.
Thank you. All right, we're going to move along to Q2 financial reports. I had a couple of questions from the last time we talked about this. My first question is on the document 3H01. We talked at the last meeting about the reappraisal grant and then the expenses down below. And did we get any resolution? Because I noticed this is the same document we had at our last meeting. So was there?
This is the same document because it's still the same Q2. We didn't.
Right,
add,
but
like January in.
there was an error on the legal and that didn't get updated.
An error on
The legal was not, there was a legal expense that was on this one as well, which I think is page 1. That was
These are
not
the same documents. We didn't update any in your packet.
Still, yeah.
Okay.
As of the end of
So
December.
those two things will be addressed?
We can't address the reappraisal one because that was a budgeting thing.
Right.
Remember where one side said 15,000, one side said 14,500. That happened during the fiscal year 23 budget over a year ago. So I can't change the budget line, the budgeted amount, but the legal line will absolutely be corrected.
Okay, thank you. Yes, Jeff.
One of the things that I was really pleased that I saw the second time around on this was interest revenue of $41,000.
That was on when we got it.
And I just noticed it. So it was one of the things we talked about previously, or somebody from the public asked
Yeah.
about is, do we make any money off of all these millions of dollars that we have in the bank? And,
Yeah.
And the answer is yes.
Yes.
And $40,000 is not nothing.
Could we be making more? Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, we set up a
Just
sweep.
throwing that out there, like we could be making more. So,
We'll be talking about that Wednesday.
Yes.
You're invited to that.
right.
We're gonna have some more follow-up.
Yeah, and that was actually one of my questions as well on the interest earned. It's so much more than FY22, but what we're earning money on isn't that different. So that is one of my questions. On 3H06, the backup, I just need some explanation on what this is. Like, it's very confusing.
So this is the detailed report of, Josh, can you just go up a little and make sure I'm speaking to the right thing? Yeah. So this is our revenue line. And where you're seeing muni payment and state adjustments, those are things that I manually entered into the general ledger because the muni payments come to us electronically as ACH payments. And the state adjustments is what the state sends as a file to our grand list, which then goes to the taxes. So when you see a state adjustment, that's basically the state saying, hey, reduce how much people owe you by this much because we're going to send it to the school directly.
Okay, in the future, could you just put that, your little calculation sheet on a different page so we know that we're seeing all of the information here?
Okay, yeah, it's just covering batch numbers.
Okay. All right, my next question is on 3H07 versus 3H08. I just want to understand the difference between total taxes on 3H07. On the bottom, it's 6,565,000. Is it all the way down?
No, sorry.
$6,565,000, and then on the tax status report, which is 3H08, it says $4,827,000. What is that? Why did
Scroll to the top of that one, Josh. I know these are questions that are so much easier for me to answer if I'm sitting at my desk. So this one is for all years that money is coming in. And I think perhaps the other one is maybe just fiscal year 23.
This is July through December.
Yep, that's what we've collected from July through September.
Okay.
Cash Scroll back up. What's the title on the other one, Josh? I think the other one might be a status report. No?
The other is total taxes versus tax status report. So
Okay.
back up.
Right, so the cash receipts report is what we have actually received in, and the status report is what we've billed. So you can see that says due. The line due. That section is telling across all tax years, that's how much what was due on December 31st. The other one was the cash receipts report saying this is how much we have received in tax payments since July 1st.
Okay, so can we go back to the other one? So is there a section here that should add up to that, like the paid?
Tony,
Well,
is this one paid for multiple years?
Yeah,
right,
well,
because that's the summary page.
it's not, is just,
But the cash receipts report would be for multiple years as well.
okay, it's confusing.
It is confusing.
So there isn't on the tax year status report, there isn't a line that matches with our total taxes on 3H07.
It would be, well, you've got, look in the paid section, 6,503,90, and then go down to the cash receipts, Josh. So there is a difference. I think one might be including the education taxes, because the cash receipts report is recording what I have posted in tax payments. This is going to show those offsets, the education taxes that that the state is telling us to basically market as paid.
Wouldn't that be on the 6 million one? Or
No, because one is cash receipts, what I'm physically getting from people coming to the office. And the other is, I believe, cash receipts and what the state is saying to reduce the amount due by.
okay, I'll set up a separate time to talk. So, because I really want to understand this. So,
Yeah, the amount due includes education taxes.
right. No, I know that. It just, why we have 4 million under due and 6 million under our
That's what we've
total
collected.
taxes.
I think this is what we've collected so far. Right? And is this what's left to be due, Connie? Still to be paid?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, we'll set up another time to go through that. 3H10. Page 2. Money market. It says money market account 32,000 and then money market allocation. Where was it allocated to?
There's 4 different other funds that it gets allocated to.
Okay, can you just
So-
get me the detail on that? We don't have to go into it now.
Yeah, 30-1 is where the cash actually lives, and then I think it might be Fund 31, 32, 33 are the funds that the money actually goes to,
Okay.
just
Can
on
you,
paper.
is that a report that you can do the detail on that line?
It's, the detail wouldn't show in Fund 30, but if you looked at the trial balance, you'd see it over the various funds over there would total up
Yeah,
to
but
the 32.
I don't know exactly
255.
what funds I'm looking at if it's broken out. So can
Yeah.
you,
We can discuss that as well. Sure.
okay? Page 10. Same thing, it's tax sale proceeds. Where did it go?
It went away. It's all done. When we have a tax sale, we have to hold it in a non-interest bearing account for a year.
Yeah.
And then when the year is up, then the back taxes got paid. And
So it
that
actually
money-
goes into the general fund?
that $5,024 was when it went to tax sale, we collected $5,024 more than what was owed in back taxes. So that
Okay.
5,024 stayed there, and then after the year, the 5,024 goes to, I guess, the prior owner. In this case, it was an estate, so I don't know exactly who it went to. It went to the attorney's office.
Okay. I'd love to see the detail on that as well. Page 12. Reserve account 0. Why is that?
I don't know. There's not an account number on there anywhere.
So is this?
Yeah, no. If you,
Oh, wait, go up. Yeah,
If there's a legal reserve,
yeah,
there's the asset, there's a liability.
it's a continuation of that on here.
I don't think so because it doesn't say legal on it.
Fund balance. What page number is that? I can look into it.
12.
12.
On the trial balance?
On the, oh, I thought I wrote that down. Whatever 3H10 is.
It's the balance sheet.
Oh, that's the balance sheet, not the trial balance. That's why.
Right.
Okay, got it. So page 12 of the balance sheet. Got it.
And page 31 under records restoration. Have we not spent anything on records restoration yet?
So we have that reserve account that Linda manages, but then we also have, I believe, a budget line for some stuff too, and I'm not sure what she pays with what.
Because we have done records restoration, right?
Yes.
I think is that, I think, so Connie, you're saying in here, there's a record restoration line and admin.
I think there's something in there, yeah.
That's where we've
don't-
been hitting.
And so,
So I think we've been hitting it out of the regular budget rather than out of the reserves.
okay,
Yeah,
because we budgeted records.
Voting books.
Recording books.
But that's different.
Right, so she does buy
Yeah,
some
she has
recordings
record
books, and
restorations.
then I think the records restoration money she's using to convert, I believe, from the hard copy books to online.
Right. Haven't we already done that, some of that though? It shows we haven't spent really anything in there.
I don't believe it's all done at this point. I could be wrong, but
We should, we'll have to look into it and see, because I know,
Okay.
I feel like we've done some record restoration. I know there was a grant at one point.
Right.
But your question is, why is this not showing any expenses?
Yeah.
Where are the expenses going?
Right.
Okay.
And then 3H11. We have accounts receivable, a negative. How does that happen?
Okay.
A negative right here on page 1. It says accounts receivable under the second set of negative 4,557, but accounts receivable should not be a negative.
Who else have an account? payable?
I would have to double check. I think that might be the people that overpay that get money back.
Okay,
It's something new we're doing, but I'd want to double check the detail on that to be sure.
okay. And then page 2 under admin revenue.
So you said 2 or 22?
2.
Okay.
Admin revenue 10,610. Negative 34,000. Net interest on investments. Was 34,000 taken out of that 41 that we've gained?
And collected them. Uncollected balance.
It can't be
That's the-
uncollected.
That's the excess above what we budgeted.
So if you look at, right, because zoning, we have 20,000 budgeted. We've collected 10,355, so we're 9644 behind. It is weird that it's showing as a negative. You think it would be flipped,
Yes.
but
That's
Okay.
because revenue is a credit. So
So
it
what's
is
the
flipped.
title on this last column?
yeah, so this is
Uncollected balance.
Is that, what's the MTD? What is
The what?
MTD revenues?
this year. The MTD, is that month to date?
Well, yeah, that makes sense. It's month.
Do you know what that is?
I'm sorry, I'm still not seeing it.
Sorry, right here.
That
MTD,
column header on the far right, it says MTD revenue. What does MTD mean?
I wonder if that's.
Oh, I got you. The view pane is covering it for me.
Oh, right.
Gotcha. Yeah, month. I would guess month to date, but that doesn't really make
It does-
sense to me.
yeah.
No, it doesn't even remotely.
it doesn't, month to date doesn't really make sense
No.
because you're pulling period 6.
Yeah.
Would,
Means
may
all
I, may I
6 months.
speak? May I
Yes.
speak? It's Kara.
Oh,
Movement
yeah.
to date?
Yeah, for the fiscal year.
Movement
Movement?
to date?
Is that-
So if we go down and we've got
Let's
9,000,
see. Nope,
no.
nope.
So that would, it,
Oh, we had 41,034 got allocated elsewhere. And that's,
no, it's just the way this is reading, it's telling you that we budgeted 7 and we're $34,000 over what we budgeted in revenue. Which is interesting that it's a negative. Because we're over 34,000. It's not like we're under.
Right, but when you're looking at revenue is just the opposite. I think it's stating it as a credit versus a debit.
And I
So
think it
they-
is month to date. I think it is, Connie, did it possibly earn $9,000 in a month? Is that month to date?
No, it did. No,
If the $41,000 is for the year to date total, or is that just a quarter to date? Is it just for the quarter or is it a year to date total? The 41?
I think it's the difference between those two.
No, that's the year.
If we do the 41,143
7.
minus
7.
34,143.
Is the 7. The 9,000 is probably what you earned in the month to date.
No,
That's what
I think it
MTD usually
No.
goes for.
It is like the 7, it's different.
It's a difference.
It's just what that 9,000 is.
Yeah.
The best
the
I can
difference
find
between-
Googling is MTD is in fact months to date.
Yes.
So we'll put a question mark beside that as well.
But well,
So those are the questions I have. So we'll find a time to go through that and maybe
looks like it's-
I'll come in sometime this week. Yes, Jay,
I was wondering if we're about to move on. Could we swap the next 2 agenda items?
the next 2?
We've got a bunch of people who've been waiting all night for
Yes.
Jay.
We can do that.
Waiting for you.
I don't know if
Waiting for- oh,
I don't
yeah.
know who we have waiting for what agenda. item.
Lisa and Sue and company are here to hear about Cochran Road.
Okay, and do we have anyone here regarding the parking issue on West Main Street? Kara, did you have a question?
I do have a question. Yes.
Yes.
On the budget. So before you move off that, can we, just, you're
Yes.
going to change your agenda, but just budget.
Okay, let me know what your question is.
It had to do with the excavator and the excavator that we spent, a couple $100,000 on having two different lines. And my question is, why does it have two different lines in this expense area for the excavator? It's
Because
under the highway department.
one-
And then it just could be an explanation. I just wanted to understand it.
One of them is the deposit, which we raise taxes to make. And the other is for the rest of it. That if you look to the revenue side, we used unassigned funds to offset. We changed our tactic in the fiscal year 24 budget because that is very confusing, Kara.
Okay. So normally you would say, if I'm going to use some of the reserves, you're going to say the budget amount is what's the reserve amount. And a second amount would be what you're going to fund through taxes so that they both would be 100% spent.
What we're doing going forward is we're not putting the line that's being covered with unassigned funds in the budget anymore. Because it is confusing. We're going to, like, if you look in the annual report, you will see a separate page showing what we are spending out of the capital reserves. Because it does make it look like we're putting two expenses in there and we're not.
Yes. Okay.
Yes, we've changed that.
Good. Thank you.
Welcome. Okay, any other questions on the quarterly financials? All right, we're moving along. I'd rather go in order. I don't know who's here for.
Well, it's after 9 o'clock and that thing's only supposed to take 5 minutes. So that was my reason. for
Okay. Is that all right with you? Is that all right with the
Okay.
board? Okay, so we'll move along to summary of traffic calming studies on Cochran Road, which we've been talking a lot about. So I'm going to have you go through, Josh, if you don't mind. There were questions coming up about why we had so many studies going on. So
Yeah, so this is a good question, and I'm glad to have a chance to speak on it. So we've had a lot of different discussions on the studies, both in the past, ongoing, and still to come regarding traffic calming on Cochran Road. Here's a short summary of the next steps and the timeline in this process. So currently, CCRPC is working on the study to be completed.
Share.
Oh,
Can you pop the timeline up?
It's in the memo. I
Yeah,
can,
it's-
I'll publish it later, though.
Okay.
It would be helpful. So CCRPC is working on a study to be completed by June of 2023. That's this June, to advise on location of temporary traffic control measures. So this would be focusing on the temporary speed humps and painting, which we've discussed in the previous meeting. They're going to help us out with exactly where should those be. We've requested from CCRPC to work on a longer term study to be completed next June. This should be a quarter study for all of Cochran Road, along with focused scoping on the 25-mile-an-hour sections on either end of Cochran Road. It's likely this project will be approved by CCRPC for next fiscal year, but it has not officially been approved. This study will provide suggestions for locations on permanent traffic calming measures. CCRPC is also looking to conduct a traffic count in April or May in both 25-mile-an-hour zones and in the 45-mile-an-hour zone of Cochran Road. This data will help inform both studies, the temporary traffic calming measures and the corridor and scoping study. This will be conducted prior to the installation of speed humps, as data from that study will help us determine exactly where speed humps should be placed for a temporary basis. The select board has also expressed a desire to install radar speed feedback signs on either end of Cochran Road as soon as possible. CCRPC should have a recommendation for specific locations of these within a couple of weeks. This will hopefully slow traffic, and the traffic count study will be affected by this. But in discussion with CCRPC, we felt that it would be worth implementing this measure as soon as possible to try to make some more immediate changes to speeds on Cochran Road. And there's also two other radar speed feedback signs as you enter the 25-mile-an-hour zones from the middle of Cochran Road. So sort of heading into those from there. So those are already hopefully affecting speeds. So hopefully that helps clarify a bit, and I can post this on Front Porch Forum if that's helpful on our website as well.
Okay, questions?
I think that would be a good idea to put it on Front Porch Forum.
I do.
I do too.
I do as well. So I would just summarize by saying that we're trying to do things quickly to get some things in place. And to remind people that these planning initiatives through CCRPC and elsewhere take months to years. Like, so that's why there's sort of do some stuff as quickly as possible. Collect some data, see what we can do, and also do an organized study. When we get to the next issue of parking on West Main, I think it will illustrate the complexities that
Right.
come up when we engage with traffic and speed control.
Thank you, Susan.
Thank you. That's really helpful to have that list, and I look forward to seeing that in writing somewhere. My other question is about the Transportation Committee is doing a study about the intersection at Cochran Road and Bridge Street, and I wondered how that sort of fits into this.
The scoping study.
Yeah, I don't know that there's a specific study on that intersection. We've talked about that intersection in reference to where to place the radar speed feedback sign, which CCRPC is going to be looking at, and that would probably be involved in the scoping study. Oh, I think you're talking about the idea with, I think last what we looked at was last summer where there was like that teardrop island as you come up Hinesburg Road, right? Or Huntington Road into, and that was part of the complete street study? Let me follow up with Kathleen to see how that loops in, but do you guys all remember when we looked at the different areas?
Yes.
And then we talked about radar?
Yes.
We talked about flashing crosswalk signs in that area. There was an idea for like a teardrop that would sort of
Yes.
slow people down with a mountable curve. There's a few ideas. That might be more conceptual at this point than actual
But
implementation.
CCRPC is going to give us some guidance on that.
Yeah, let me find out with Kathleen where that is, because that's a good point, Susan. I don't know exactly where that's playing in on this one, because we haven't talked about that for a while.
Well, I attended the Transportation Committee meeting, the most recent one, and they actually had money assigned to that project, and they weren't really clear what was involved and what the money was for, but they had assigned a budget to it.
I don't know that we've assigned any.
They don't have it.
They might have a
They don't have
concept.
authority, so.
No,
They might have like an idea. Let me follow up with Kathleen or and Chris Cole, sorry, as the chair. Because I don't know, but I'll find out.
okay. Thank you, Susan.
Thank you.
Anything else? Okay, moving on to update on parking issues on West Main Street near Richmond Family Medicine and Our Lady of the Holy Rosary Church. So I'm going to have you talk about your conversation and
Sure. I do have an update since that.
Yeah, we got this reply. Let's see.
Yeah.
So at the last meeting, we talked about how in the past there had been a no parking area in this section of town on Route 2. So I reached out to Ian Degatis at V-Trans and he found, where's my notes? That there actually was a no parking area. Let's see.
it's
I
not
think
really in the memo.
Yeah, right. It's in from 2005. The town asked it for, oh, sorry, it was prior to 2005. There was no parking area. And then
Right.
in 2005, the town asked for this to be rescinded and it was. And then in 2010, the town asked for the no parking area to be reinstated, but that was declined by V-Trans and their traffic committee. I did follow up at the end to ask, well, would the committee look back in history to 2010 and with a new request and say, well, we already denied that, so we're gonna deny it again. He did get back to me subsequent to posting the memo and the agenda for this evening's meeting. He said that usually the committee would look at current conditions and current safety issues. So if the board feels that there's current safety issues, we should outline those as well as possible. And then he would help support that if he saw that it was also a safety issue, then it would go to the traffic committee with new evidence about what's going on in this area. So based on that, I think next steps is probably inform the residents and business owners in that area that we'll talk about this at the February 21st meeting, gather more information, and then try to write a formal letter if you'd like to.
And it did say that the 2010 denial was really based on the fact that there was no evidence that there were accidents as a result of, you know, in those areas, and that's why they denied it. So we may get the same answer, but Barn.
So this is actually why I raised that issue in the last time, that we need to look at accident data, because
Yes.
it's clear to me that both the Regional Planning Commission and V-Trans look at actual accidents.
Right.
And I appreciate people will think that that's closing the barn door after the horse has left, but that is literally how they look at this.
Yes.
What are not close calls or people afraid there might have been an accident, but they are really informed and persuaded by actual accidents. And there are places where some of us remember the intersection with 117.
Mhm.
Before they put the light in.
Before they put the light in, they put the light in because, do you remember there was glass?
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
All the time. Yeah.
And that was what led to that decision making. And I'm not defending it or assailing it. I'm just saying that it's very clear to me that's what they're informed by and influenced by.
Sure.
So, the AOT committee, right? It's for V-Trans committee, the
V-Trans.
V-Trans committee that
Well, it goes to a different committee
It
for
goes,
the decision.
it goes to the V-Trans traffic committee.
Oh, okay.
Their traffic.
Their
committee.
traffic
Yes.
committee.
Are those public meetings?
Yep. I've been to one.
Okay, and can our residents and business owners provide input at those meetings?
The one that I went to, there was ability to provide some feedback. I know that Roger Brown and I were on a call about a speed study, and I think we had some input in that meeting.
It would seem to me that there are some people that are really passionate about this, and then may want to, they can provide input to us, but if we provide input to V-Trans, it's just us providing input to V-Trans and.
But I think we have to provide evidence first. We have to reach out to the businesses and residents in the area.
Yeah. So I think it's two phases. I
Yeah.
think you're right. I think you're both right. That the first step is for us to make the request, it has to be based on something, public input, that people
Right.
support it, that there is a cause for concern. And then it goes there where they look at it. It's also clear to me that this is an odd thing where they both want more parking in the village and don't want more parking.
Right. Right. Right.
Want more parking except for there.
No, I mean, the Agency of Transportation or V-Trans.
Yes.
like,
Both directions.
There's another momentum to make parking more expensive in downtowns, ostensibly to encourage people to walk or ride the bicycles there. And when I pointed out in our example, or public transportation, that most of those are not viable outside of the village center itself. So making parking more expensive is more likely to have the net effect of making people go somewhere else.
Mhm.
And so they wrestled with some of these things and how they have policies that would apply equitably both to urban centers, village centers, and rural areas. It's just an interesting thing to watch.
So we'll ask for feedback for our next meeting.
That is the next step. We should have, if we're going to request it, we should have some information, public input, and a sense of the community that that's what they want.
Right. Okay, moving on to discussion of forming a gardening committee. So this came up at an ARPA committee meeting, and it was discussed that perhaps a gardening committee could be formed to look into the possibility. So this, what do we think? I mean, yes.
The genesis of this, I think, was there were quite a few things that came before the ARPA committee that came down to beautification of Volunteers Green and other parts around town. Not making that up, Jeff can attest to this. And Mary Houle said, I can only do so much. Maybe we could get to other committee. And I'm like, if people want to be on a committee and we want to ask them to decorate around the Welcome to Richmond signs and plant flowers here, who am I to say no? If people want to get, and that's basically it.
Okay.
If we want to give a town imprimatur to you all are the gardeners, by all means.
Yes, Jeff.
Well, I also heard there was interest in community gardens, you
Mhm.
know, like community vegetable gardens,
That too,
which
yeah.
is two different things.
Yes.
And we have a community garden, a vegetable garden, or have had it. Katie Mather is the one that organized it.
Mhm.
You know, so I was hoping that she could speak to at least that part of it. And I don't know whether it's her or more, maybe.
I did
think
not
we're pretty-
organize a community vegetable garden.
Oh, come on, you should.
Well,
No,
I
but-
didn't.
Go ahead, Karen.
Kara?
I didn't remember it the way you did, Jay. I remembered it the way Jeff did. It was people wanting to talk about, should we put community gardens at the volunteers green? And that's where the rec committee said, yeah, we're not really going to tackle that. And so the comeback was actually your idea, Jay. Well, maybe we should have a community gardening committee. And
Okay.
and that's
Right,
when
I'm
Mary
thinking
said, okay, yeah, I'd do that. So I think
Right.
it was more just a community garden where people could actually grow vegetables in a patch.
Right, I'm conflating discussions with Mary in the hallway and discussions in the meeting.
Yep,
But right,
I think you confused with
we,
that.
we do
Yep.
have we do have some community garden like there at the corner of Thompson Road and Cochran Road, but if you look around the rest of Chittenden County, there are a number of places like Essex Junction where just as you're going up West Street, there's a huge one there. We don't have anything on that scale, let alone the one like Burlington has up at Ethan Allen Farm. So if we wanted to explore doing a larger community garden, I think that there would be I think there would be interest. And I also think that if we did want to do more with beautification, it could be the same committee, frankly.
So should we add this committee to the list of what we're looking for committee members that will be posted soon?
I don't see why not.
Well, I
Jeff?
did actually, so like, we're not getting a lot of requests for this. It seems to
Right.
me it should
We have
be
to put it-
driven by people who
Volunteers.
want to do this and asking us, can we appoint them to a standing committee? Just putting it up and saying, you know, we have open spaces for a committee that we haven't quite figured out what the charge is for yet. I don't think it'll be successful or.
Well, if we have a committee, then I think if we have people showing interest, they should come together with their charge.
Or we could say, here's kind of what we're thinking of. If you would be interested in doing this, we're looking to kind of. If for example, if we did say we want to spend our money on this, we would need somebody to do it. We don't have a staff to run a community
Right.
garden. And so it would basically be, here is a possibility, and that's all it is. If you'd be interested, please speak up. And if no one does, then that answers our question for us.
Right. Yes, Bird.
I would just observe, I appreciate Jay's point. I think Jeff is also correct. The historical pattern here, most of these committees have been formed because a group of people said, hey, we're interested in this, like, and some of them in the last several years, we
Right.
want to focus on this. Would you empower us to focus on this? And we said, hooray, heck yeah. So maybe it's like, you know, if there's no natural leader outside of the select board, do we put it out there and say, does somebody want to be the founding chair or something?
Here's an option. One of us posts a Front Porch Forum and basically says, some people have expressed interest in developing a broader community garden program and also in beautification projects around the town. If you would be interested in this, please send us an email. And if we have 500 people suddenly write us, well, then that's one thing. If we have 2, then that's another.
And write us, meaning who?
I think personally, we should have them call you, preferably after.
That's enough.
No, I mean, they could contact me. They could, I mean, whomever you think would do it. I'd be happy to take the.
Katie, are you raising your hand for them to call you? That's what Jeff said.
Yeah.
I sure am not.
What would you like to say?
Create a little context if you'd like. So one of the things that we talked about when I was on the board, and I don't think that I'm speaking out of turn by paraphrasing a conversation that Pete and I had during a select board meeting, which is that we had wanted to create a catalog of the sort of the perennial plants that the town is charged with caring for, that Pete's crew did not necessarily want to care for. You know, mowing lawns and caring for shrubs are not the same thing. And so we had talked about creating a list of everything that is owned by the town that is a perennial plant. And I do believe we did that. And so then there was talk of forming a committee that would help to care for those things, but then we got a global pandemic instead. And so that sort of fell by the wayside. And then I had also applied for a grant to get money to create some community gardens, and we didn't receive it. And then I was sort of like, okay, well then I don't want to deal with that right now. There was definitely interest from the community in creating and caring for perennial gardens in town. I would separate those out from creating and caring for vegetable gardens, because they are definitely different skill sets, and you have different people who are interested in those two things. So I do think there would be community interest if you put it out there. And I also think that in my opinion, they should be sort of tasked as sort of separate ideas, or that, you know, we could create one whole community and then, you know, it would be tasked with these two different things. But it should be made clear that there are ARPA funds for it if that is the case.
Thank you, Katie. That was very helpful. So maybe we start with a post on Front Porch Forum saying,
Is anyone interested?
is anyone
And I'm
interested?
willing to put a $10 bet down right now that there will be a lot of people.
Okay, would you post that?
I will.
Okay, thank you.
And so that might be a future item in a
Yeah.
couple of
Yes.
meetings.
Yes. Okay, very good. Next on our agenda.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, discussion, update from Water Sewer Commission regarding the Gateway Water and Wastewater Expansion Project. And I will hand that over to you.
So this is a little unfair because I haven't talked to everybody everywhere about it, but you know, put it sort of on the radar. So as we've contemplated what might happen, you know, in the Gateway or elsewhere, it has become clear to me that the issue of affordable housing, affordable senior housing has gotten attention everywhere, from the governor's office, legislature, planning commission, select board, water sewer. So contemplating, geez, what are their opportunities? And they're not many. Here's a couple of things that we know that affordable housing, or I think I know, that developing affordable housing in a rational way is a skill set. There are people who have their careers built around it. That affordable housing needs a certain scale, and it needs water, sewer on site. The affordable housers do not build roads and water sewer. They look to build where those things exist. So we put out sort of feelers, and it's still kind of in play. Somewhat randomly, Jay and I talked to the Regional Planning Commission, Taylor Newton, and he's interested. Reached out to, I have calls into Cathedral Square Corporation and Champlain Housing Trust. And as one example of possibility of a meeting with the REITs, the current owner of the Willis property, is there anything there that could work? And I will only observe that I have seen successful capitalist construction companies make money building affordable housing and affordable senior housing. So there must be some kind of dare there. I'm not an expert on the dare. I'm just looking at it and going, well, it happened and they look happy. And they're driving nice cars and work out a nice building. So somehow it worked for them. And it works best if there are like sites that are potential. And the Gateway is one potential site with no commitment, no promises. As you know, I tend to think of things as red light, yellow light, green light. This is at best yellow light, but it might turn into something other than red light.
Right. And Taylor had a lot of useful stuff to say. Taylor looked at, he knows the Gateway very, very well. And he's aware of the approximate size of, let's just say, the REIT's property. We are not selling the REIT's property for them. That's up to them. But they feel that this would be a good site for quite a few affordable housing units. I mean,
Taylor
from CCRBC, his last name is Newton.
Yeah.
So Taylor, go ahead.
Regional Planning Commission, when they look around and, they look at our town and they look at it and go, well, there's not many places you can do it. Part of it's where does the water sewer system go or could go? And that's sort of like, are there pieces that could be put together from different parts? Are there, one example, I don't think anyone has great interest in putting ARPA funds into water sewer just to put it out to the gate.
Oh, absolutely,
Right.
right.
But if it is part of a plan to develop affordable housing or affordable senior housing, it might get support. And it's very tenuous at this point. It's no commitment. I don't have a plan. It's really just exploring, is there the possibility of a plan between property owners in town, the REAPs or others, the developers, and again, being on water sewer is a kind of gotta have for the affordable housing folks.
Right. But if we could, if there was a handshake, if there was more than a handshake, if there was an agreement between property owners out there and the people who, as Bart said, know what they're doing, even if the buildings weren't in the ground, because there's planning has to take place. You can't just say, okay, we're gonna do it. It would be then a lot easier to justify running water and sewer out there. Like Bart said, we're not gonna run it out there just because we hope housing will result, you know. But if we had, say, if the REAPs have an agreement, if anybody out there has an agreement saying, we will sell our land to you, you will then agree to build 60 units of affordable housing. I mean, that's a game changer.
And again, I can't, you know, it's a little unfair because we're a little ahead of the conversation with the REAPs. I don't want to commit to them doing anything or selling anything or building anything. I talk about this as supposals.
Right.
It's not, it's before you get to a
Like, let's
proposal.
have a conversation.
Right. And it could be that some of the other properties along there, Rod West, I know isn't. He was on here earlier. It's not.
He is, yeah.
Oh, he is there. Rod is sitting right there. He might hear about this and go, I want to be in that meeting. I mean, it's just, we're trying to arrange some discussions.
Right.
And it'll go somewhere or it won't. And so the way I'm thinking about it right now, if we can get people at least to have the conversation, benefit now is people are used to virtual conversations, so it's less of a commitment of time.
Right.
And, you know, worst case scenario, people spend a couple of hours of their time and it doesn't get anywhere. Best case scenario,
we get affordable housing.
We somehow out of it comes a magical maelstrom of affordable housing.
That's kind of an awkward.
Yes, Jeff.
So one thing I am aware of about affordable housing developers is most of them are nonprofits. Cathedral Square and Champlain Housing Trust are in that model. Yep. There's a difference between them and you know, just a regular developer. And one of the differences is that the nonprofit developers, they have developed a great expertise in pooling money together from various different sources. There are very complex tax credits that are available to nonprofits for the purposes for social good. And they're excellent at putting together. It also takes a long time for them to do that. But I fully support the idea of talking with Cathedral Square and Champlain Housing Trust. That's not true with other properties in town, anywhere that they think, you know, and my question to them is, what do you need? You know, so how can we help?
Right.
You know, is there something that we can do that would help you look at Richmond for a project? And we'll think about it. We'll discuss it and think about it.
Right. But there's no commitments from anybody on any side of it.
Right.
Are we suggesting that we appoint or charge a subcommittee here for?
Not yet, I don't think.
No, we're just
right?
gonna have a chat. We're open. The REAPs have agreed to chat, right?
I think it start with a first meeting and if it gets a red light, it's not worth spending any more time on it. So if it keeps
But it's a
yelling
matter
at
of,
me.
I think the meeting really has to be, how would this work? Like,
What's the business model, as they're fond of saying?
yes,
Mhm.
yeah.
So who would do that? Who would be having this meeting?
I think,
Engage, I would.
so I said, you know, I'd be willing to do it. I don't have to do it, but I'd be willing to do it. I think in most of the conversation is frankly between a property owner. In this case, one candidate is the REAPs. And then Champlain Housing Trust, Cathedral Square, and talking about, is there a way to work together?
And CCRPC or,
And regional planning, yes.
Right.
And I also thought we might include Virginia Clark from Planning Commission, because if there are implications there,
right,
knowing about them sooner rather than later probably makes sense.
right.
People use various tools around the state, like density bonuses.
Yeah.
You know, one of the things, another wild-haired scheme, just to put it out there. One of the things Taylor suggested, you know, we talked about our height restrictions because of the absence of a ladder truck. Apropos of nothing, no commitment, but he pointed out there is a ladder truck literally about 4 miles away from that piece of property, which is, it could be there faster than a ladder truck in Burlington going almost anywhere.
Right.
in
Yeah.
Burlington.
I mean, it's just a straight shot,
If
one
you could make
stoplight.
it- If somehow there was a
True.
need for that, could we engage Williston in a conversation about that? Who knows? That's over the horizon, but it's the kind of thing that Taylor mentioned.
Well, that we might be able to bring to the table, that we'd be willing to consider that. It's, you know, something.
The private developers probably not gonna be able to make that arrangement, but with
Right.
partnership of the town, if that was like, for it to make it work, it had to be over 3 stories, we could at least have the conversation.
Right.
So right now, we have no answers. We have no, we have no plan. It's just, can we have this conversation?
Right, this whole thing started when people started asking, Bart and I are not affordable housing experts, but as Bart has been putting it, there are people who do a very nice job, make a very nice living doing exactly that. Why are we not getting, let's get them at the table. I talked to CCRPC because it's like, is there some program that we're just being dense and overlooking? Is there something we should be doing? I mean, what should we be doing that we're not doing? And that's when Taylor said, talk to Champlain Housing Trust and CCRPC. And we're like, oh, what a revolutionary idea. Why didn't we think of it? But that's kind of where we are.
And it also relates to the project-based tip thing, you know, so.
Yeah.
Pull
Yes.
that off. So this is where it's like all these sort of loose ideas, but can they congeal into something that would actually happen in any reasonable time frame? Maybe, maybe not.
Okay,
So that's my update.
thank you. Kara?
Couple questions. Don't we have a housing committee?
We do. Well.
Okay.
We do, but have they met in a while?
With Ravi gone, I don't recall if there's much there anymore, but we can
Okay.
check.
So that's one question. You have a housing committee that's been working on things for a while, I think, but maybe not. Second question is there a reason we're focusing only in one direction? If you're really wanting to bring affordable housing to Richmond, why are you only headed in one direction?
We're
You
not.
have the, okay.
I
Then
thought
I,
just said that. Did I not say, among other things, that was one possibility?
Yes, you did.
Yeah.
the properties there, I thought you were referring to REAPs was one possibility, but you were still headed in that direction. I'm sorry, I misheard that, Bart, so I apologize.
I
But
said it was one possibility, and it happens to be one that is held by developers that are looking to do something with it, which is unusual from what I understand.
so can I ask that since you are approaching them, could you possibly approach Buttermilk to see what's going on with their development of stuff that we had brownstone money and we cleaned up the site for them to be able to build structures? Why aren't we also working to see if they might put a building up of affordable housing that's already on the water and sewer existing right now and you wouldn't have to spend $1 million to expand the water and sewer for that? I'm just
Thank you, Kara.
asking.
That was the last conversation the housing committee had when we met. I went to that meeting. I don't know if they have met since.
Right, I mean, you and I met with some people. And the
Yes.
discussion was, if we allow them to skip, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but if we allow them to not put commercial space in the bottom floor of every building and therefore be able to put in more housing back there, they would be willing magnanimously to give us 10 apartments that would be affordable for 10 years. That was kind of their offer.
It was 15 if they could do 90 units and that.
Yeah.
But it wasn't permanent affordable housing.
Correct.
And so.
Okay,
Yeah,
okay, sorry.
there-
That's great to know that. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
I will say for deep background, I offered
It was for some amount of time.
several times over the course of events with Buttermilk to have meetings with Champlain Housing Trust and Cathedral Square. Could we help you with that? Could we have a meeting, see what possibilities existed? And that did not pan out.
Thank you. And my last question has to do with, I think it's Cathedral Square that owns the property over behind Richmond Home Supply.
No, that's Champlain
Is
Housing.
it Champlain Housing? Okay, I wanted to make sure I got the which one that was correctly. So Champlain Housing Trust and the $300,000 that we still have outstanding with them, 2 or 300,000. Thank you, David, if you put up 2. But whatever that was, when does that come to fruition? And maybe we could encourage them to spend that money toward a project in our town. You know,
It was extended in 2015 for another 15 years. Is that right?
About that, yeah.
And we actually will be having a meeting with them to sort of get all of those details. But what's important to know is that was pass through money. So so if we were to get that payment back, it would mean we invested in another project.
Right, but that's what I'm saying. Invest in another housing project.
Well, they're showing a deficit. So we have more information to get from them, but we do have a meeting scheduled.
Well, if the part of the meeting could be that we would encourage potentially the debt forgiveness if they spent it in our community, it might be a win-win. Their numbers might not look so bad. They might find some other money to get this done and get it off their books. But it's better for them to keep looking like they can't get it off their books than to not. So like, let's reward them and say, hey, let's clear this up. Let's move this forward. Let's do a project.
Okay, thank you, Kara. Anything else on this?
Just so you know, there was a meeting of the Housing Committee, January 12th. They talked about many of these issues. So it is an active committee.
Okay.
There are 3 people on
Thought
it.
so.
And who are the 3 people?
Martin, Connie Van Egan,
Virginia.
Virginia Clark.
Van Egan, Virginia, and who's the third?
Yeah, so I think I was aware that it was Virginia and also in her role in the planning commission, right?
Yes.
So which is why I suggested her name as the.
Okay.
Mark Hall.
And-
was-
That would be good.
Yeah.
Okay, we're gonna
And
move
one
along.
last developer to talk to down on Thompson Road. Gary Brassor has some parcel or some land down there that potentially could put some affordable housing on in a larger scale, larger size, potentially. I mean, so I would really want you to look at existing water and sewer areas where you potentially could put affordable housing
Right. At this.
already
point,
in the
we'll talk-
system.
Yeah.
If somebody says, I want to put a set of 4-season yurts down next to your house on Pratt's land and Pratt's willing to do it, you know, what the hell? Let's do it.
Hey, Jay, if you guys were coming to me and asking me to, it'd be a different story. So that's what I'm saying. If you're meeting with developers, start meeting with them.
Can we put a bunch of 4-season yurts on your property?
Okay.
You could put affordable housing on my property any day of the week.
Okay. All right, we're gonna move along to follow up on using Campbell Sump Middle School as an emergency overnight shelter. I'm gonna have you speak about your meeting, Josh.
And so I met with officials from Red Cross, Vermont Agency of Human Services, and Vermont Emergency Management on January 23rd to get more information about how can we make Campbell Sump Middle School and or Richmond Elementary School more ready to be used as an overnight shelter. Learned a number of things in the meeting. One is that very few, maybe there's one town they think in Vermont that is ready on its own, that has its own cots, its own equipment, ready to just go unsupported. They described a scenario where things are sort of tiered. Once you have a facility ready to go, it has generators, it has what it needs sort of infrastructure wise. They can run a Red Cross managed shelter, which is the Red Cross comes in and runs everything. They bring all the supplies, all the staff, they run that shelter. They can do a Red Cross partnered shelter, which is run by the municipality with supplies and some staff from the Red Cross and some staff provided by the municipality. Or you can run a Red Cross supported shelter, which is run by the municipality with supplies essentially dropped off in a trailer by the Red Cross. And I think once you have the facility set up, you can kind of run each one based on the scenario that you have. So they said when there's a widespread, like the ice or the winter weather that we had back in December, that is harder for the Red Cross to come in and support individual shelters because they're trying to respond statewide. If you have a localized crisis and it's not likely to spread, then they're able to provide more resources for the town to set up a shelter. However, the steps to get to there, the next step is to do a survey of both buildings. We haven't had one since I think 2014. So I'm working on setting that up for this coming Thursday with a member of the Red Cross. I'll take about an hour at each building, do a survey through to see what exists for any generator hookups, what that would run, how the size of the facility, what are the bathrooms like, are there showers, what's the kitchen facilities? From that, we'll have a checklist of things that exist and things that we need to address. And then we can start the discussions of how much do those things cost, what are the right things to get, who's going to manage it, who's going to pay for it between the town and the school. But I hope to have more information shortly because Thursday, it looks like we're coming together for a meeting.
Cool. Very good.
Nice.
Chair.
So if you talk to the school district at all, this is not our building.
No, right. So I think the first, it is listed as our shelter and the principals are aware that it's listed as the shelter. So I reached out to both principals to ask, could we show up and do a site visit and have a facilities person there to at least start the walkthrough? And then I think once we identify what we need, that's then going to be the conversation of, we need a $20,000 generator. How are we going to pay for it? Where's it going to be stored? Who's going to maintain it? I think those are conversations that we need to have, but we need to identify what those conversations are about, I think, and the survey will help us get there.
So, a couple of things to know about it, Camel's Hump in particular. It's a new principal, it's a new facilities manager. Phil Graff at the high school, he's now the facilities coordinator for the district. So you might want to be talking with him as well. It used to have showers. And they were recently taken out.
Really?
Well, think about middle school and going into, a mass shower. They haven't done that for, 25, 30 years. And so the showers were unused for a good deal of time. It's now storage. That's where we put the voting machines during the voting. In theory, they could be put back, but if they'll be, in addition to the Red Cross and, FEMA or whoever, whatever federal or state agencies we talk to, we're going to have to talk with the school districts as well about who pays for what in their building. And
it's part of it. I mean, we're required to review and update the emergency plan, which will happen in March or April timeframe.
I thought we just
What's that?
I thought we just approved that.
I feel like we did just approve it.
But a memo just came out saying it has to be approved annually. Is that right?
It is. I just forget what time of year.
Yeah,
But every year we do review
Right
and
after-
approve it. And
yes.
A survey to understand exactly what we have, I think is.
Right. So I think this is perfect timing because you can kind of incorporate that into your plan.
Yep.
Okay, moving on to review advertisements for committee appointments. That was a nice list that Duncan pulled together. Thank you, Duncan. Do you want to go through this?
Sure, we don't have to go through each individual one. Really, what Duncan did was he looked back at previous advertisements, compared that to what we have on file for vacancies coming up at the end of this May. And we'll start community outreach. We'll email all of the current committee members. We'll post them from Porch Forum. We'll put it into the Times Inc. to seek applications for folks that are interested in serving, both people who are currently serving as well as new folks. We collect, I think we set a date of, I should pull it up. We set a date in a couple of months, and then we allow each committee to review and make recommendations to the select board, with the exception of the DRB, because they're quasi judicial. They don't get to make a recommendation on who is going to serve there. It also leads up to a process where by May, the select board is considering approvals to these committees. And one thing I was thinking about today that we said we would do is we could ask for feedback on how long people have been serving on the committees when we do the outreach. I know we talked about doing that before. So when Duncan sends this out in emails, the committees will ask for that feedback and we can start adding that information. And so the board will have longevity information to consider when making appointments. So tonight, I really just wanted to get other eyes on this. If anything needs to be changed, let us know. We'll change it. Otherwise, we'll start the process this week.
Yes, Jeff.
So one suggestion that I would have is listing who's already on the committee and it's not up for renewal.
Well, that's on the town website.
Well, I know, but if this is what is being posted, I mean, like, you know, Jay, I would like to know, people to know that there are incumbents is the coal wares. There are people that are
That's true,
already
because
in
you
it.
had to poach in on my gig.
So I think that's a good idea. What I think we should do is put a link in this, because this is already pretty long.
Yeah.
So I think we can put a link back to the website that does have, there's a master list on the website. that shows- and we-
list, really.
And Duncan's highlighted each cell of seats that are up for renewal,
Yeah.
or whose terms are up, I should say, not for renewal. So people can kind of at a glance get a sense of who's the incumbent and when is that seat up. But yeah, we can add a link to that. That's a good suggestion.
Anything else on this? Okay, moving along to staffing update.
So this is our quarterly, sorry, you want me to?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, please.
This is our quarterly update to talk about any changes in the last quarter. So this is really from October through the end of December. Administration and highway, both fully staffed with no changes. Police, we currently have a police chief position, which we talked about earlier today. One full-time position and 3 part-time positions open in the police department. Library has not had any changes since the last update in October. Their minimal staffing needs have been met. Planning and zoning, we are still looking for a replacement for Revy as he left as the town planner. We do have some applications, haven't really come to terms with any of them at this point. So still accepting applications on that. Water and sewer, Alan Carpenter continues as the interim water and wastewater superintendent. And we've done a search. We were unable to come to terms with our top 2 candidates, so we're continuing to remain that, keep that open. But also earlier, I announced that we're going to be promoting Brad Snow, who's currently an operator in training. He's going to become the process operator because he's received his Water 3 license, which makes him fully licensed to run the water side of our plant. He's doing really great in the program, the training program for the state. So we want to congratulate him on a lot of hard work, and he's going to continue in that program, even though he's moving up with us. So I think he's becoming a very valuable employee.
Questions? Thank you very much. 2022 statistics and quarterly update from Richmond Rescue. The PowerPoint that was in the packet was excellent.
Awesome. It was really, really good.
It was really well done. Any questions on that?
Just once again, we're so freaking lucky to have them.
Yes, so, one question I had is that a lot of both the way that the data was laid out and the questions they ask, it seems like those would be questions that would be equally applicable to both the police and the fire. Is there any way that we can get some kind of comparable data on at least some of those, or pick out which ones would be useful?
We're asking for data now. We're actually, Jay's working on compiling some data because we're looking to put more information on the website. So we have the police, what committee is this?
Yes, I just need to get Ben, I need to meet with Ben and get him to extract this stuff too.
So that might be informative. This particular thing might be important, like hours of calls, when do they come in,
right,
days of the week, and that might inform, if we had, full staff, it might inform what, what coverage we might want.
Incidentally, if memory serves, they're willing to allow select board members to do ride-alongs. If anybody wants to do a 12-hour ride-along some weekend.
Yeah, can't wait.
No, I mean, honestly, it's something I keep wanting to call them up about, but then I keep forgetting.
I did a ride along in a cruiser in the Tesla, actually.
Yeah, I've done 2 ride-alongs. I can never, every time I say, can I do a ride-along with Kevin? He's either in the military or injured. He needs to stop doing that.
Ride-alongs are great. I did one when I first started. You learn a lot.
You sure do.
You really do.
So
I was
there's the
exhausted after
experiential experience of the ride along, and then there's the data.
Yes,
So there's a benefit to both, right?
yes, absolutely.
Brings the other. And so, I think it is a good question about, it's an awkward time to ask the police department to do more, but in the ideal world to have good data on police activity and fire department activity, what are.
It might not be this particular department because we're so short-staffed, but, as we, hopefully move into a new regime, part of the strategic plan, I would love to have, an annual report, in next
Yeah.
year or the year after,
Well, we've had
Well,
annual reports in the past.
Yeah, we are posting monthly data on the website.
This is visual as well.
Right, and that's where we're
Right.
working now. There's a government website that Jay's been looking into with our community, was it biggov.bi? That will help us maybe take some of that and make it.
Well, the Burlington website is the model I want to work from, and Ann Nauman hooked me up with their person who said, because our question was, Ben and I sat down, and looked at the Belcore database, and we were saying, well, that field sounds interesting. The problem with having 700 distinct data fields is that 600 of them may have no data in them.
Yeah.
And so unless you put it, and Ben did not really seem inclined to say, just here's my laptop, go to town. But the Burlington people gave us a list of fields that they think are useful. And the Power BI subscription to set something up, I've got the Power BI subscription. I just need the data, and then I need to stop trying to clean my basement and sit down and actually get busy doing some draft dashboards.
So to answer your question, we're working on it.
Okay, yeah, I'm not trying to push. I was so excited about seeing all these.
It was
charts.
very good information for sure.
Mhm.
Okay, we're going to move along to approval of minutes, warrants, and purchase orders. We can start with the minutes.
Well, this is David. I'd like to move to approve the minutes of the January 17th select board meeting.
Thank you.
Jay, I'd like to second.
Thank you. Any changes to the minutes? I have one. On the last line on page 5. Have you pull it up because
I'm sure Duncan's catching it, so.
what's that?
So I was gonna write down your change, but I'm sure Duncan is doing that already.
yeah,
So
okay.
Let me just pull it up here. Last line on page 5.
It says something about we can do the audit after, which we can do the audit after December, which I didn't say because we can't. So if we are paying our water sewer bill quarterly, then we should be paid quarterly. We can do the audit after December. I don't know what that means, but we can't do the audit after December. So I don't think we should include that line.
Okay, so strike that line.
Yes.
That might have been about, all right, strike it.
I know there's a lot of like moving on to the next subject without that interim piece. And so I'm like, I don't know exactly what was said. And then page 10, under the police chief, first paragraph.
Mhm.
First paragraph. So so in the packet, there's a draft of the background statement, job posting, blah, blah, blah. It's,
I think we need a that.
you're
Between
looking for,
disclose and this, we need the word that.
where's that?
Between the word fully disclose and this on the second line, there should be the word that. To fully disclose that.
Could be a temporary, but year-long.
Yes.
Oh, I see. Okay.
It's a trivial thing. It's just if you're trying to be grammatically perfect.
Okay, so the idea to fully disclose that this could be a temporary but years
Right.
long
Mhm.
position. And then it will take at least a couple of years to discover if we want to pursue a union municipal district. We need to take out the word discover. It will take at least a couple of years if we want to pursue a union municipal district. We are going to take less time to discover if we want to do that. So just on that, you got that?
I think so.
I got
Just
it.
take. Okay, thank you. That's all I have.
Okay, then.
All right. Any other changes on the minutes? Please state your name and your vote.
This is Jeff, I.
Jay, I.
David, I.
Mark, aye.
June, aye. No purchase orders. Moving on to the warrants.
I move we accept the warrants as presented.
I'll second.
Thank you. Any discussion?
I actually, I hate to do this, but I
I have a couple, so go ahead.
well, you always have a couple. Everybody, not everybody always has a couple. Let me see if I can find it. I think it was under the payroll employee contributions. The last two pages of that one. This was this one? No, I don't think it was.
But while we're here, I had asked this question before. What are fringes?
Not this. I have it.
Sorry, I know I got the answer now.
It might be health care. I just don't know.
What is it encompass?
Yes. And do you know what your question is, Jeff?
I think I got it. Yes, I do have it. So it's under, it's under the invoices. And it's the last, the
For payroll?
employee of the payroll invoices in the last two pages. Okay, on this page, notice that the employer contribution is less than the deduction. Okay, and if you go up to the next one,
That's because
okay, yeah, what?
the deduction is what the employer is actually, the employee is actually paying. The employer then does a contribution.
Okay, that makes sense to me. If we scroll up one more. Okay, notice that the employer contribution is more than the employee contribution.
So depending on, is this retirement?
Let me see what this is. This might be, is this taxes? Taxes.
Oh, it's taxes. It's payroll taxes.
Let's see, social security, this is a total of 13,058.
So I didn't know what, I just couldn't make sense of that, why they would be different.
What the deduction is, what the employer, so you have to pay income tax, right?
Right, and then.
So I know this is Beamer's, sorry.
Oh.
It's group, I'm looking at, it says
So
group,
that's that's medical?
group, no, this is retirement.
Retirement.
So this is, as I'm looking at group B and group D, group D is the police, group B is all the employees. So, yeah, that would be the
Okay.
deduction out of the employee's paycheck and then what the town is putting in on top of that, because they have a percentage of the payroll, each of them have to.
Okay,
contribute.
and so in some cases, we're paying more than the employee, in some cases.
It looks like on D, we're
That would be the
paying, town
union, right?
pays less for the police and the police pay more than up here, it looks like.
So the deduction from employees is whatever they choose to put in to,
No, not with.
This is
Beamer's.
assigned.
oh, it isn't?
If I recall correctly, it's assigned or established by the group.
Got it.
Beamer's itself, it
Yeah.
says, you
You
pay
will
me
put-
this much and your
and we'll
employer
put in-
pays this.
Oh, got it.
My
Okay,
guess is
The others-
police is different because they can retire earlier, right?
right.
Okay.
Got it.
I think that's why they're in a different group and
That would make
probably with
sense.
different.
Yeah, it looks like,
financial model.
if I'm looking at this summary, I mean, it looks like the deduction on group B is lower than the employer contribution for each individual employee.
Yeah.
So the percentage must be higher for, right, and
For
then,
employer.
yeah, for the employer, and then it just sort of gets flipped here.
Okay,
Right,
that's
so-
not, that's nothing we negotiated. It's
Yeah, it's just set by the-
Beamer's does, right?
Set by the state with
Okay.
Beamer's, yeah.
Okay,
Got it.
thank you.
Can you go to Chappelle or Chapel, whatever
This is on the invoices.
yes.
This was me. Just tighten this a little bit. This one here.
Yeah.
right? It's,
So it said $651 credit. Oh, so keep going.
this was when we had a purchase and then a credit right away.
Yes.
Yeah, so I asked about this one too, because it looks like, so they sent us an invoice. And I said, why can't we just not pay that invoice and have it be voided with the company? But apparently the way they do it is they can't just void it out. So they're gonna actually issue us a credit because we bought it, returned it, they still invoiced us. So they're giving us yeah, it gets convoluted.
Okay.
So they issued us a credit, so we're applying that credit to our next purchase and we do
Got it.
from that. Yeah, we're
Okay.
gonna pay them the right amount. It's just, I was like, why don't we just scratch that invoice? But apparently it doesn't unfortunately work that way
Okay.
that quickly.
And then, there's a tax charge on one of the Staples receipts and it's circled as tax, but it's still paid. It was still paid under the warrants, the full amount. And so I don't know.
Move there.
Yeah, I know, right? Okay, Staples. Nope.
Still Richmond Home. Supply.
Yeah, sorry, I saw S, I got excited. Rick's.
Want to solve?
Yeah.
And they're our only dealer. They got the monopoly.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah, one of us should open a salt business we could clean up.
Staples, okay. So let's see.
So, keep going. So it's on the receipt because it was purchased with the card. Or I don't know how it was purchased, but we have a receipt that shows tax that was charged. Keep going down.
Just like a regular paper receipt?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. Keep going
Oh, I saw that too.
right here. So it was
Oh,
tax of 1827. But they used the card, so I don't understand.
yeah, so that looks like. So that was gonna be a total of 329, and then what's on the warrant for that one?
That
The 329? Let's go to the
maybe
warrants.
not, maybe the warrant,
Let's see,
maybe I looked up that and
oh, let's see.
Three.
Staples. And sometimes Staples
I
gets,
feel like it was
it gets
maybe the,
put together, right? Skip
Trio.
the Staples. Oh, so. All right, so there's 6057. What's Staples? Is this combined easily with something else? Okay, so we had, I think it's probably these two combined, right? We had
maybe,
310.95 plus, you have a calculator? Yeah.
yeah.
Plus 56.77 maybe? What would that be?
677, well,
56.
367.72.
So let's see. That's not jumping out at me.
Maybe Sharpie markers aren't tax exempt. I don't know.
They are.
So,
Just, we don't have to get into it, but just because it was there.
yeah, no, let's,
It's interesting that it's circled and it doesn't line up, that total doesn't line up on the warrant.
There was another one that it, quadrant.
475.
Oh, no, that was not that one.
oh, wait a minute.
321.78.
Oh, right, okay. The 475.
321. No.
Okay, 329.22 is there. Sorry, I think I'm lining this up because then we've got the 329.22 up here.
Yep.
Right, so that fund, and then the 5677 is the other one we looked at, right?
Right,
And then the 179,
right. So
So
that
that-
329,
that 329 should be less, right?
yeah, it should be
Okay,
310.
So that should be. That's all.
Yeah, we should get the tax back on that.
Okay. Just trying to see if there's no, okay, so remove.
But if that
there,
was
18,
charged
20.
on
Right there, you can see it
Highway,
was
18,
charged.
18,
It shouldn't. it
Right.
Shouldn't have.
It shouldn't have, but it did.
Right here, it's there.
Yep, down, keep going down. It says 18. It was charged under where it says highway. Your cursor was right at it.
I'm not going at it. 1827, 329, 22. Yeah,
Yep.
that's the same as,
Yep,
okay, so that's 1827.
but we're paying the whole
Yeah, no,
475.
we'll make sure good catch. We'll back that out.
And have we gotten anywhere with coding for projects in Nemrick?
Oh, boy. Not that I've heard, but I sure wish we had.
I know we've added detail.
I'm seeing.
I know we've added detail on the legal when we break that out. So we're breaking that out by different projects. Where's that?
Just, we don't have to answer that now, but I just,
Well, so I mean, like where we have it, assigned to different things, so we are detailing, especially for the legal, what ties
okay,
back to
and
that.
that matters
Very
because that's
archaic platform,
really,
I think.
That's where we have a lot. I
Cochran.
mean,
Yeah.
salt is, I mean, like,
yeah,
it's hard to
No, it-
code if we don't know.
No, it's
like,
extensible. You can actually write
track.
custom modules
right. But
for
when
it.
we're doing a project,
Could we make
keep
this
meaning to ask
agenda
them if I can get a
item?
training
I'm
copy.
Still,
Because I don't think the
Yes.
Connie's gonna be too happy about having multiple
Yes.
select board members who can look over
Yep.
their shoulder, but
about coding.
I'm convinced
coding
that there's
for
probably-
projects, and it should be,
right.
it seems to me it should be possible to do multivariate taxonomy. It's not A or B.
I did get into Nemrick and I was a little confused. It's not an easy,
Like for a legal bill. you would
that
have
we're doing now.
multiple- You'd have multiple
Sounds like a cloud
codes for
engineer
each.
then.
We have a
Right.
bunch of cloud engineers in my company.
Right.
If you're
I mean,
a software as a
if we do
service,
like a special project.
typically
like what we
relying
had
you the
for
web to
bridge repair,
access it.
they could have a
And
separate
you-
account
Right.
set up,
It's like a full
that everything went to that
application
account
dashboard.
number, so it was
Everything's
easy
going
at the end to say, all right.
And that's
here's the
how,
engineering,
that's how
here's the
one of the
construction,
medical
here's the
revenue cycle
advertising
platforms my
fees.
company makes.
It's all
meant for
there's
fees.
nothing
Is the
but-
reason everybody's talking over each other?
We do that for
Yes, we're trying
FEMA,
to
we
be
do that for
confusing.
FEMA as well. So we do
Thank
have a
you.
special code, when we have a set project, like
You see
it is all going back, especially for like a FEMA or like
Hmm.
a road project where we're doing DWSRF loans.
And that will be important for ARPA too, because you're gonna have multiple projects
Exactly.
under ARPA.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
So we are doing that for those bigger projects.
yeah, so let's put that on our agenda. VGS, there's a late fee on there.
Yeah, we're gonna, Connie called on that, because I mean,
Okay,
we never get late fees, but we're never late, we turn these around,
right,
so we're gonna waive those fees.
okay,
I'm not sure how these two got late, because one of them is Linda, and like, she literally gets it, codes it, hands it in,
yeah.
so. But yeah, we're getting them waived,
Well, they are
Okay.
all the way over there.
they're gonna be waived.
Iroquois. There's one receipt that you can't, is
Oh, it
damaged.
looks like it got through the wash or something, right?
I have
Pocket.
no idea. I was like, "Wha-" So in that case, as rarely as it happens, it's important to write a note down below because we don't know what that was spent on. There's no readable information on that receipt.
Looks like the copier ate it.
Yeah, maybe that would plug it to. Let me see.
Hence Katie's comment about scanning everything is not as easy as you'd think.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
think it
yeah.
happened before it was scanned and right there.
Yeah,
got-
it did get.
Stepped on or something.
Yeah,
Probably somebody's pocket.
Yeah.
I would never do a thing.
They could just print another one.
Yeah.
yeah,
You could get
Iroquois
it,
could just email you one.
yes.
They're right over there.
I only wrote down Quadient because I did look, I had talked to Linda a little bit about postal services and she told me that really what they're doing out of the office is just letters for the most part. So if you don't need a meter, if you're going to take packages downstairs and you don't need a meter, you can print postage off your computer. You can go through USPS and that doesn't cost you anything.
Mhm.
If you want a meter, you do have to go through a vendor, which Quadient,
Quadriant.
there's no R in there,
Yeah.
is charges $195 to rent that equipment every 3 months, I think. So I looked at Pitney Bowes, yes, that's it. Pitney Bowes, it seemed significantly cheaper, but I think we need to ask the question, do we need a meter since
I mean, I think when we're doing like tax bills, and you're just running them through, like you're gonna need something that's faster than like printing.
Unless because you can get a bulk permit.
Go downstairs with the package. Yeah, I think you have to sort them by.
You do,
invoice.
I've done
You have
that.
to,
You have to sort by 5-digit zip code, 3-digit zip codes.
there's only one zip code.
No, there isn't.
Well,
No, there isn't.
Right, but you still, that's the
Wow.
sorting you have to do. If
you do
you're,
have to sort it.
Yes,
Yeah.
you can print them in zip code order.
yes,
And then if you get a bulk permit, it's like a fraction of the cost. Are we doing that? Like 17 cents as opposed to, or maybe it's,
Can we do a
21
permit for tax bills? I wouldn't think so.
we're a nonprofit. I think I read that, I'll have to look that up, but you can do bulk permits, maybe not for municipal.
I have done bulk permits as a nonprofit.
Yeah, but the tax bill is different. It's not like the same piece of information going.
Just give cookies to the person at the post
I
office.
see what you mean.
Yeah, and it's all good.
It's different, you know?
Each
It's not-
piece
it's not
is
really a
different.
bulk mailing.
Yeah,
It's
each piece is
multiple
different
pieces.
inside.
And there is some, value to be able to track, like if water and sewer's got
Yeah,
5 things going out and then planning's got 10, like you can choose the code and
yeah.
you can track where the postage is.
I mean, if meter, if you need a meter, I would say, look at
Look
the
at
other,
Pitney Bowes.
yeah.
Yeah.
That's all I have.
We are going to miss you. I mean that sincerely.
Bart has a different opinion right now.
It's not true. I was serious about the coding, making it an agenda item, because
Yeah.
it's a recurring kind of question.
Yes, absolutely. Okay. So we need a vote.
Second,
We already had the motion and
we just like moving things, okay?
Jeff,
J.I.
David,
Bard,
in June,
Was there a question on the Green Lantern stuff? Yeah, but it was explained.
it was explained. I didn't have any questions.
Good.
I put that in every year because every year I'm like, how does this work again?
Yeah.
I have to read
It
back.
is
I'm like,
confusing.
oh, that's how, because
the breakdown on the $100 bill.
isn't that,
Yeah,
yeah,
that
that,
Understood it.
that helped me understand
The
it.
bottom line is we saved $10,000 this year and over
Yeah.
$50,000 over 5 years.
Yeah.
6 years.
That's a Tesla.
2015. That's right.
Oh, dear.
Okay, moving along. Discussion items for our next agenda.
Oh, gee, it was a long list. I don't know.
Yeah, do we have time to put that on there? Yeah.
Yeah.
Coding within
It's not
NEMRIC for
particularly
project
time
coding.
Sensitive, but it's not going away either.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
The traffic ordinance warning.
Mhm.
Yeah.
There was questions on the records restoration.
Retention.
Yeah, although I think because next meeting, we're going to be reviewing the audit.
Yep.
We need to give that significant time.
Mhm.
And I'm in no hurry for any of it.
There could be a subtopic for the auditors about.
That's true.
Yeah. So
Let's-
let's
yeah.
talk about.
Well, the auditors, well, they should know. Let's
Well,
ask.
What they say, I'm fairly confident they'll say, I know what I know, and I know what I don't know.
Yeah.
So this is what I'll say, you need to deal with this other part yourself.
Yeah. Okay.
There's a little bit of information about trading in the Tesla and that one car that you're going to try to gather some information on, right?
Yeah, but we're not going to do that for our next,
Actually, a lot
Okay.
of work to
Yes.
do that.
Okay,
Yeah.
I'm just trying to wrap my head if anything else.
we have to figure out. Because we voted that we weren't purchasing a cruiser this year, so that's a change that you'd have to talk about. Before you moved forward.
June just wants to put it off until she's on.
Yes, yes, indeed. No, actually,
That's just
it is
me.
something I would love to have resolved before I leave, but
Update, are we gonna have anything to say about police chief recruiting between now and then?
the 21st, probably not.
Yeah, that's like 2 weeks ahead.
What about feedback on your meeting with V-Trans on the Route 2 parking?
That'll, well, no, that
We-
we'll ask for public comment.
Yeah, that's our
it's-
public
it's-
comments meeting.
Okay.
Or follow up on our meeting with TD Bank.
Oh, yeah.
So we do need a plan. Is that our plan next meeting is to invite the public to do comments? Because
Mhm.
that should probably not just be an agenda item, but front porch forum.
Yes, that,
And we're gonna
I
mail
will
to
send
like
Porch
the
Forum
people,
about.
we'll mail to the property owners that are right in that area.
So
So
I think it's a 3 for
yes,
agenda, front porch forum
and the mail.
direct contact.
Yeah.
An update regarding gardening.
So do we want an update?
Um,
Give that a couple of meetings to get some.
See what happens when you put it out there.
People are gonna be lining up at my door. You watch.
Yeah. I love your optimism.
Are you gonna meet with Cathedral Square and?
We'll see. I mean, I have calls in, so.
And how about an update on the emergency shelter site visit?
sure.
I don't know. I don't
We'll
know.
know what we know.
Yeah,
I mean, we don't have to do it. I just was taking notes to going along. Doesn't have to be that. Anything else? And that's this is kind of our last meeting before
meeting,
information meetings. and all that, you know, which is-
I don't.
right. Yes, yes, indeed.
Are we serving cake?
The good luck with your retirement June cake. Is that?
Jay, did you get that email on Ideal? They want to do their.
All right, are we good?
Yeah. Meeting.
I just made a note on removing tax.
I do not get an email.
Yeah.
When did you send it or did Savannah send it?
This.
So do you guys wanna?
We need a motion.
To adjourn?
Yeah.
Oh.
We have a motion to adjourn.
No, I want to stay, damn it.
Yes.
There was email about Route 2 pinch points. From Michael Fowler. You got it too. So
When did it go out?
it arrived at like 7:30 tonight.
Oh,
I don't know if that's gonna be an agenda item. It's probably
Okay.
not urgent,
we'll take a look
but
at that.
something to.
And so what
I've never
about,
had so much time fun as talk about.
what about the Hillview second driveway? The Avanda property?
There's really nothing to do. They haven't filed subdivision arrangements and the road is not, the entrance
We
is not
filed
complete.
a response and copied the board on that.
Yeah,
Email
Yeah.
response,
Yeah.
that here's the deal.
Yeah, and
and right now the Avondas are in compliance with the law.
Okay, so there's no action for us to take in.
There's no basis for an action.
And they've been notified of that, those.
just the contact.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was that email, the email about the 2 driveways and permitting status and development status.
And you responded to that.
Well, we sent a response that we copied the select board on and the complainants, everybody that signed the letter, and we gave a look at the Avandas as well. To summarize what Jay just said, that they're still in compliance and it's okay right now.
Okay.
So yeah, no more action needed.
Now we can take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you so much.